John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.
Hey, you epic being. Welcome. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey on what will be a very, very special release for myself. It's Andre Hodge, Infinite Potential Healing, Servant of Truth with you once more. And I've got a bit of a gem for myself and a surprise for myself. If you've been across me for many, many years, a veteran, I have always enjoyed offering clips relative to the epic teachers that I come across, just to impart their wisdom and give you a reference of their frequency and who they are and their authenticity and stuff like that. And one of my favorite people over the years has been a incredible being by the name of Dr. Richard Alan Miller, who's getting really on in his age right now. So he's been on my mind actually for last few months amongst many of the missions. So if you're across my stuff, some of the big things that have worked out the last 18 months doing, I don't know, 100, 150, 200 GSF missions in 18 months that culminated in working out that her soul was trying to be ejected and defending her and realizing she wasn't connected to Source, and then tracking back Source and working out Source was actually captured itself from the invasion that happened at the original moment of our universe, sort of thing. So back in October 5th last year, 2024, I did a pretty epic mission with one of my allies that's in my GSF 36, so Galactic Special Forces 36, where we actually healed Source itself, and then with all those components working out what's going on with the architecture and humanity and the backdoor accessing and code stealing and talent stealing and breaking all that down and working all that down. And then earlier this year, early January, we worked out that with all the stuff done to humanity and the efforts to modify our DNA and stuff like that, we getting Earth really cranking with pure Source and solid and really getting control of the grid on the surface and stuff like that, working out that we could get her to take responsibility of our DNA to do a reanimation process constantly. So while there's a lot of stuff been going on and the sovereignty of our bodies we haven't actually been in control of relative to the corporations that we're in and stuff, what I worked out is, working with Earth and one of my allies, we could actually get Earth to take ownership of her DNA and do this reanimation process. So she's got the original reference of our purity and all the stuff done to us and all of humanity, and that what we've initiated with her is to do this reanimation process, right? So there's a reset constantly where she's checking the authenticity of how we are, and we're getting her to reset it back to what she wants, all right? So that was a big victory earlier this year. And so I don't know what it's been like for you, the working out in my sovereignty declaration version 4.2, particularly the AI stuff. And I know, thanks to allies that are protecting me, and I'm being very vague, but I know the specifics of this have worked out a lot of stuff that's been done to me. So working all this stuff out with Earth and stuff, I don't know what's been going on with you, but I've sort of tasted a lot of metal in my mouth and all that these last few months and stuff. And specifically the last few weeks, all right? So perhaps that's what you've been feeling, because it might be a sign that this process is going on for you. And what I'm getting to is how this particular audio came about, all right? Because one of the big things I worked out back in April was about this concept called the Pure Source Spiritual Assembly for Multiverse Resolution. And what I worked out, this is going back to April, I think. I released a video around that, and I worked out that the dream time was being hooked into the Maritime Admiralty law sort of stuff, right? So working out how to separate that. And obviously if you across my stuff for the last few months, really protecting the timeline, astral and dream time, and even Earth came in these last few weeks and helped encrypt the switches between the brainwave states like alpha, theta, delta, beta and stuff. So there was hacking going into them to derail us as well. So that was all cleared up. But going back to that video in April, I was really appreciating the Maritime Admiralty law and how that was being expanded into the dream time. And so one of the epic teachers relative to that for me was, if you've been around for a while, you know Jordan Maxwell, and I'm pretty sure I included some pretty awesome clips in that relative to him, specifically on the Maritime Admiralty law, right? To offering it as a concept of what's going on. And so what I'm getting to is how this particular audio came about to being recovered from myself, because I surprised myself. I didn't even remember it, which is weird for me. I know I had a personal conversation with Richard Allen Miller in December 2013, and it wasn't that long. I know I could access him if I wanted to, but I respected his boundaries because who he is and what he deals with and stuff like that. But he shared some information about Duncan Rhodes having a Army Ranger handler sort of thing, right? So controlled sort of opposition sort of stuff, right? And so that was relative to the Nexus magazine and all that sort of stuff. So he probably wasn't meant to say that. No, I've got the video and stuff. But this Jordan Maxwell triggering was an opportunity for me to go and look back at my old teachers on old hard disks, so to speak. I hadn't looked at for many, many years and stuff. And so that also, over this last 8-9 months or whatever, I also have all these people like Michael Desarian and many other people that I do a rhythmic checking in of what they're up to and what they're doing. As time goes by, they always offer new videos potentially and content and concepts and truths and stuff. So time goes very quick, but I always love to check in what certain people are doing, like Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, and all those sort of people, right? I've got this whole list. So when I got this triggering of Jordan Maxwell, one of them was Richard Allen Miller that I obviously like to go and check in now and again. Time goes by so quick now and so much is happening. So one of the videos that I was looking for was relative to this video that was on some YouTube channel years ago about cordyceps sinensis, because he talks about that, and I know it was lost off YouTube, and I know the way I appreciated the internet, it was always fluid, right? It was never going to be solid, okay? So when you came across content, you had to sort of take a copy of it and keep it offline and stuff. So I've got many discs that are offline. And so when I got this Jordan Maxwell trigger to find this Maritime Admiralty content, at the same time I was searching for Richard Alan Miller. And so in that searching, I knew I had this old recording of a Skype conversation with him that wasn't very long, right? So I just wanted to check if I still had it and where it was and stuff like that. So I do searches on my discs and stuff like that. As I searched it, I found another Skype conversation with Richard Alan Miller in it. And this one was a couple hours, and I was like, holy cow. And so I just skimmed it, and it was a RevolutionRadio Roundtable from December 22nd, 2013. So it was almost 12 or 11 years ago now. And ironically, I've just gone through it, and it was the year of the snake was mentioned in it as well, which is quite ironic, okay? Because it's just happening around now. I don't actually know the exact date, all right? So we've been in Year of the Dragon, and we're going into the Year of the Snake from the Chinese perspective. And so I've got mosquitoes flying around. We're in a heat wave down here, and it's a very pleasant night. I just had to wait quite late because there was a lot of watering going on with gardens and stuff at the moment. So if you're freezing wherever you are, I hope you get some warmth from down here. We're in a bit of a heat wave here, so the muzzies are out. But so in April I found this, okay, and obviously if you're across my stuff and been into it, it's been Game On, In the Trenches, all these big chipping away sort of missions up against it, offering my sovereignty declaration, which version 4.2 is very, very good now. But yeah, just In the Trenches, working out Earth's soul was in trouble. A lot of people have been really targeted and messed with, and helping them out and helping some allies in some really horrific situations and stuff. So I didn't actually listen to this, right? And I thought there was like about a half-hour section with him. And then just checking it the last couple of days, because I mentioned that big success of getting Earth to take ownership of our DNA and do this reanimation process was a massive victory that came about from 18 months of 1 to 200 GSF missions. As I said, we healed Source itself on October 5th, all right? Galactic Special Forces 36, October 5th, okay? So everything has sort of been on the line, and lots of issues and targeting, and a lot of people being messed with. That's why I do my sovereignty declaration, my healing relative to energy hygiene, all right? So I never got around to actually checking this thoroughly, and I was like listening to it this week, and I was like, wow. Not only did he come in for the half an hour, and that was a bonus, but then he comes in for about another hour, 20 minutes or so. And like I said, I've had him on my mind for a while. I think he's getting quite old. He might not live too long, so that's why I've had him on my mind. So I found a couple of really cool lectures and stuff, and in all my videos I love doing clips of people and stuff, and I've been really meaning to clip him for some of the epic stuff, right? To include them in my releases. But I just haven't gotten around to it. And it's quite ironic. Then I was listening to the audio, what's in this, and so many of the sections of the clips that I was aiming to release are in the conversation that I actually got to ask him direct. And I'm just laughing at myself because I don't forget stuff, right? Especially something so profound as this. So I was laying pretty low because of the second half of 2013 was pretty rough. There was a host on Revolution Radio that left her husband and drove over to my city and was really messed up and haunted and all this sort of stuff, and created a failure setup to try and get into my life, and I just wouldn't have it. And then she was calling me dangerous on the air and all this sort of stuff. I didn't want a bar of her. She left her husband after he bought her a car to drive over 800 Ks and stuff like that. So it was pretty crazy and stuff. And a few days after this, I'd meet Max Steele, who is someone pretty profound I got involved with in 2014 and did a lot of missions with and stuff. But yeah, this audio with Richard on Moulder for me was like a very special discovery, because he's had a lot of impact on my life, and he set up the Navy SEALs. He was the original Fox Moulder, and you know, he's a genius. He created cordyceps sinensis for mass consumption and stuff like that. So I might just show you a few books that I've got just before I get into the main body. This is already pretty long, but this is going to be a very special release for me, alright? Because I really didn't know I had this full body of interaction with him, and I was just... Revolution Radio was really cool. I'm assuming they still do it, but they had these roundtables where you as a listener could call in and be on the air and ask questions and stuff, and I did it a lot in the first half of 2013, late 2012, 2013. And then I called in for this, and then I really wanted to thank Amadpainter, who is the host of this, and he's a really amazing guy. It's hard to believe it was like 11, 12 years ago, but I always respected him and his integrity and humbleness, and he always got me and appreciated me and stuff. And I had a chance to just have a chat to him, and he's the one that brought Richard Allen Miller in, because I offered how I was just appreciating his interviews with him and stuff. So I'm just going to show you a couple books quick, right? Because I've been a bit excited talking about this. So I'll just show you some books and then we'll get into the main thing, alright? So there's a 2012 and a 2013 Project Camelot interview that really triggered us all for Richard, alright? And I mentioned Project Camelot because that was something I found 2008-9 and got into pretty heavily before I got into all the high-level spiritual intuitive stuff. But there was an ally, Dee, shout out to you if you're listening. Richard was offering books, and she actually sent a couple to me as gifts, alright? So this is one of them. This was his first one, alright? And the reason why I'm showing you the books is I checked just in the last few months, maybe it was 6 months ago now, that he's got a lot of book deals on his website, alright? And you can get a lot of these in groups and cheap. The shipping internationally is pretty expensive. If you're in the US region and stuff, it's pretty awesome, right? So this is the first one, ESP Induction, right? I'll just share another one. This is the second one, and I think he's released a whole heap related to this theme now, but going through the section I've gone through so far, I haven't listened to the whole audio yet in thoroughness and cleaning it up a little bit, fixing the audio, because the audio isn't the best quality. He talks about the power tools, and so this is a pretty epic book, right? This is another book that he would recommend a lot, and we talk about, and I bought it straight away. It's epic, right? James Hillman, The Soul's Code. One of the clips I've been looking to grab is when Carl Sagan asked him to go and work out the language of the dolphins, and he went to John C. Lilly, and I think if you're here, you got an appreciation of the sea life and stuff like that. We get into that, alright? So that was one of the clips I was planning to get, and I didn't even realize we had a good chat about this. So this was what it was about, right? So Richard's had a lot of influence on me over the years. I haven't been in the trenches with him so much, but I found some cool lectures and new content and stuff like that I'll aim to include in clips and stuff like that. But this intro has been quite long, and what I'll do is a bit of an outro at the end. But it's just a random roundtable, December 22nd, 2013. Hard to believe it's 12 years ago, 11 years ago now. And outside of the interaction with Richard, we had some really good interactions, so it's well worth having a good listen to. So those of you that are big fans of Richard, I hope you get a lot from this, and those that have never come across him, I hope it inspires you to go seek him the original Fox Moulder that's been through so much, right? He set up the Navy SEALs to identify intuitive warriors and stuff like that. He's a remarkable being that's, yeah, we're very fortunate to have. And then he came out into this sort of community after 30 years. And I get to talk to him at great length, so it was a real honor. So I thank you for being here, right, and listening to this intro. It's a very special release for me, and sort of like a surprise for myself. As I said, I'm pretty good with things. I found it ironic that I forgot about this until I recovered it and had a good listen to, and it's like got so many components that I was thinking of creating clips for, so it's all in one spot. So if you're a really hardcore Richard Alan Miller lover, like I am and many I know over the years are, this will be very profound because it's in a really relaxed state back when he was in really good form. And for myself, it's a great honor to have the time with him and impart it and offer it to you. And if you're new, I really hope you get a lot from it and go on a epic binger of this amazing guy. I would start with the older stuff, and I've got a couple really old interviews on my channel. They were the first ones I uploaded that I talk about at the end, this Mike Hagen guy. When I discovered him in 2012, I went on a Keyboard Ninja binge, right, and found him, and so I like sharing all this stuff. But I really hope you get a lot from this. It's a unique combination of ingredients that I think is very rich, and there's a lot of information here that you may not have heard of before. So I really hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you on the other side. All right?
You don't get nothing for nothing, you know, and a lot of people are looking for it, I think.
Yeah, no, what you said, the banks. I mean, like I said before, the friend. Can I borrow you for 2 hours? Help me out in my backyard, clean up, move some stuff, heavy lifting. Yeah, okay. So
and then
the next
you should
time,
say right then and there, right then and there, you say, well, when I'm going to be needing this, I'm going to be expecting you to look them dead in the eye.
Exactly. So I ask you for help, and then 2 weeks later, you're going to go, hey, man, can you help me? I'll go, yeah, bro, I owe you 2 hours. This is my individual imagination talking right now. I say, no, I owe you 2 hours. But the bank...
When you do somebody a favor, you should never expect it in return.
Well, no, that's a good point too. But I'd like to give back, you know. So what bringing it up is the banks and that, you know, where you loan money or time, because time is money, they expect more all the time. Where in the community, if I give you 2 hours, I don't expect it back, like you said, Ahmad, but I hope that you would give 2 hours back.
That's where greed gets involved in it then.
Yeah.
See? And that's the problem is we've been joined by Andre Hodge.
Gentlemen, how are you?
On time, no talk. What's up?
I have been in a hole in self-discovery, but good to hear your voice. And Ahmad, I've been thinking about you, Ahmad. So I'm glad to catch you. So,
have you found yourself?
I don't think I'll ever find myself, but just going in, mate. Like being quiet and doing a lot of research. But you guys are talking about interesting things, and I just like happened to be around, so thought I'd call in.
Hopefully we've caused somebody to go, and go look.
Yeah. Hey, listen, awesome to hear from you, Andre. Thank you, Ahmad, for letting me join. Thank you, Olive and Thunderbird. And what's the name of the guy on now? I've heard him before. I forget his name. So.
Dave ain't here, man. Dave.
Name? Eve. Anyway, my battery's about to die. I'll go. Thank you, Andre, for joining. You can take up the Aussie vocals.
Holding the fort, mate. Holding the fort. Keep cool over there.
I've got a charge. Might jump in. I've got to find my freaking charge. I'm in the bush. I don't know where everything is. Anyway, all right. Thanks, guys. Take care. I'll be listening, though.
In the bush. I'd like to be in the bush. In Australia now. Don't be going to the gutter over there.
Oh, man.
Right, it's been pretty hot down here, so I don't know if you really want to be out there at the moment.
I don't know. It's supposed to be winter here, and it's like 79 outside.
Now we got winter
Humid as
where
all
I'm
get
at.
out.
I got winter right out the front door.
Yeah, you guys were
As far as I'm concerned.
You guys were talking about some interesting things, and you know, Matt, I've said before I used to trade currencies, and by doing that, it sort of funded me learning about the banking system, and then who controls the banking system and all that sort of stuff. And I've disappeared a while, but I've been doing a lot of research into the opium trade and that. And, you know, the British Empire was built on opium, and that sort of got handed over to the US around World War II and stuff.
They definitely made a lot of money on the opium, didn't they?
Yeah. I mean, it said, you know, there's the Jardines and the, like HSBC was founded in Hong Kong through the opium trade and stuff like that. But
a lot of people don't realize that's the reason China closed down its borders.
Yeah, they got destroyed. So, yeah, I think anyway, but you were talking about greed and archons and stuff like that. And the money system, what money is to me is an exchange of energy. So Pony was talking about doing 2 hours hard labor, right? So as a human being, it takes energy to actually do that work, right? But he was talking about, you know, I actually practice energy exchange rather than currency, because say if someone does something for me, I recognize it and I keep it in the back of the mind, and I return the favor or whatever in some time in the future. Whereas we live under this system of money, which these central banks, which are private, have an aspect of interest on that. And all money is a form of neutral energy exchange, right?
Do you ever think, I contemplated this thought once in a while, and tell me if I'm crazy or not, but I'm a father, have a son. I do things for him that I would, you know, if somebody else did it for somebody else, they charge it a lot of money, right? As parents, we take care of our children for free. We take care of our household for free. And I'm thinking, could we ever aspire to a world that we could treat each other in life like that? You know,
not
like
with materialism and greed involved.
Oh, honestly?
But we do all in our little individual little families, and it's so hard. Why can't that bubble, them little bubbles, like be a big bubble and be one big thing? And we don't feel that towards one another, like, but we are all family. You know, we breathe. We want love in our life. We want food. We want a warm, dry place. You know,
But say
we have all these. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I think I've got a bit of a delay, so I might speak over you. But say, for instance, in that example you use is doing things without the need of a return to someone you love. Well, that's an investment. You're investing your energy and your life into your child, right? And
no, you're creating.
I
think.
Yeah.
And that's not an investment. That's like, give it away, you know, like and letting it out. You create it and you let it out. And we could create such a good world. We have all the materials we need for everyone to be well fed and well housed. There's not one excuse why that shouldn't be.
Well, the only excuse there is greed. I mean,
Yeah.
we grew enough food to feed the whole world and ended up destroying 2/3 of it because no one could pay for it.
Well, there's also an effort to maintain a status quo of a select few, right? And the majority to suffer. And then there's other areas that suffer worse. I actually feel right now what's going on is there's an organic growth of that going on, and it's in the form of Bitcoin. Because what Bitcoin's going to prove is banks are fundamentally void in their existence.
And evil. Right, they're evil.
So they're proving themselves wrong in our lifetime right now.
Isn't Bitcoin pretty much the same thing? It's a fiat currency based on nothing.
But it doesn't matter if it's not built on nothing. There's a limited number. you can't just print Bitcoins, right?
There's no interest. No interest.
Yeah, there's no...
At this moment you can't, but, when they start regulating it, of course there'll be
when the evil put their claws in it.
But the thing is, it's a bit like centralization versus anarchy. You can't control anarchy and centralization and controlling. And, at the moment you're talking about regulation. Well, say in the US, you're not allowed to, there's only one currency that you're allowed to trade. In Islamic law, you're allowed to trade things for equal value, but this means that there won't be a way to limit it. So at the moment, the central banks, what I found out just recently was there was $29.616 trillion put into the system since 2007 to keep the banking system alive.
And there isn't that much commodity on the planet.
It's crazy, mate. $29.616 trillion. And, what's happening to our world, What's happening to the quality of life of the majority? It's just ridiculous. So it's all just going to prove itself invalid. And it's just a matter of time and, doing what Dave says, like doing things without expectation of reward. And also doing it to people that, aren't our loved ones, You see someone suffering, you see what you can do, and you try and rekindle that community spirit. And I think there's worse to come, but I also think there's better to come after that as well.
Yeah, I believe the road to our future is going to be paved with a lot of bad time, but in the end, we're going to come out at the top, this spiritual entity.
The reason why I was thinking of you, Mad, was I actually started doing homework on people that I follow, such as Richard Allen Miller. And I heard the interview.
Miller is awesome.
I heard the interview you did in July with him, which was outstanding, mate. And I have memorized many of the quotes that he sort of says. And it's like one of the real...
I said?
No, that Richard talks about.
I was going to say, don't memorize any quotes I said.
Hey, mate, you've got plenty of good things to say. You got heaps of good things.
Spiritual self-sufficiency, I think, is lacking. Everybody's out there looking for the way, looking. We know it. We know it in our heart, man.
That's my whole point. I mean, we know where it's at. It's within each one of us.
And it's just like the way we love our families and our close ones, our loved ones. That's the secret, man.
In the moment, just doing the right thing.
And a lot of people are scared to let that out, though, because they get hurt. But then that's where you gotta, you suck it up and say, I'm not going to let nobody kill my love or kill my happiness. That my happiness and my love is solid, The
moment you let what they think interfere with your feelings, they're winning.
Yeah. And this is a quote I was going to say. Well, I've got two quotes of Richard. One of them that he says is, nothing in the universe has meaning except for what you give it. Whether it's good things or bad things, why do you choose to give it? That thought. And the other quote I was going back to say was, whether an experience is good or bad, if you gain personally out of it, when you look back at that experience, was it good or bad? And, when you talk about things going bad and stuff in the world, which, I accept that it's possible, I also think there's an outstanding opportunity for personal growth in a great number of people. And I actually feel, even when I look at myself and I observe others, trauma is a great teacher. And when people are comfortable, there's a reluctance for individual change. So I'm seeing a lot of people on the collective spiritual couch, not doing much work. And myself, and I'm sure many others listening, have actually gone through traumatic experiences that have caused them a lot of suffering. But out of them, they've had a new perspective. And
we never listen to the ones that suffer the most trauma, the ones that come home from war. it ruins people, man. It makes them kill themselves. You know, we've seen it with World War I, the veterans coming home, World War II, the veterans coming home, but yet we still go fight for these people that are just fighting over the money and the banking systems. You know, it's kind of crazy. When we hold the power, but we don't seem to learn that we got it.
I think going back to, say, those times, there were very different eras where there was an ability to keep people ignorant. And even, like you say now, from observing what happened, we've sort of, it gives me and you and others an opportunity to learn what happened, to not let it happen again. And there's some, like, you guys were, the older guy was saying, you know, how you and Ahmad went to Sunday school back when you were 8 and it was a different era. Absolutely. I mean, I feel...
It definitely was a different era.
I feel so... I mean, just being able to talk over Skype, mate, to you guys in the audience, right? It's crazy. That was impossible like 10 years ago, let alone 30 or 40 years ago. So I feel incredibly fortunate to be able to have these avenues for the acquisition of knowledge and experience that these amazing teachers like Eustace Mullins and, you know, that have laid the foundation for us to have a shortcut, you know. It's just like, I just love acquiring knowledge, and there's these phenomenal teachers that have dedicated their lives to talking about one subject, and they're just masters of it. And you can watch a lecture in 2 hours and just know it, you know. Oh, secret of the Federal Reserve. You're not going to get that past me again, you know.
I'm talking to Dr. Miller now. He might join us here in a minute.
Oh, yes. I've actually got him as a Skype, mate. So I hope he comes on. Hey, I don't hustle him, mate. I respect, you know. So,
all right, he's going to come in for a half hour with us.
Oh, excellent.
Dr. Miller, how are you doing this morning?
Good there.
Good morning.
You got your cameras off. Okay, good.
Good.
I didn't know what you were doing.
We're sitting here talking about the soul and stuff like that, and Andre Hodge here.
We are we?
He mentioned your name a couple of times, and I said, well, I know Dr. Miller. We'll see if he's around.
Yeah, mate. I memorized your quotes, mate. You've got the best quotes ever. So thank you for joining us.
You bet. My pleasure. James Hillman was my teacher. I took several courses from him. He has a book out called The Soul's Code, In Search of Character and Calling. And that's a good place to start for getting the concepts of intentionality, internal landscape, and how you structure the water in your body. That's how you're going to change the movie.
I actually picked that book up from 8 books for $2 plus freight US. So I've actually got it in front of me. I'm planning to read it over Christmas.
His concepts are useful in my own worldviews, and I build upon his insights. And so that's, James Hillman. He started imaginal psychology. They generally associate him with third-generational imaginal psychology. Imaginal psychology meaning that imagination is reality and everything else is a construct or reflection or distortion. Interesting concept.
I also watched Astral City, the movie, just recently as well.
Oh,
it's fantastic.
You did.
I'm going to have to watch it like 5 times, and I'll keep watching it. I think has many...
Yeah, he westernized that, so that everybody could identify rather than be more specific. I used to know an Obi-Man that was Kumba, and out of Brazil. And Mad Abe Abarallo. Have you guys ever heard of him? Abe Abarallo.
I don't believe I have.
No,
he's been a friend of mine since 1970 when I moved him from voodoo into OTO. And his father was a 4-star general, and he ran the Brazilian Secret Service for about 35 years.
Wow.
I think he's retired now. He's retired, you know.
Oh, I do know who you're talking about.
Yeah, Mad Abe, right.
Yeah, I talked to him on email one time. I was trying to get him to come on a show. And
Really? Yeah. Well, I can do that for you because he's my student in magic. He's a very cool person. He's interesting. He's not well, and so he isn't traveling well. You know, he's like, but he's on Facebook. You can hook up with him, and if you want me to, I'll be happy to do an intro. No problem.
Yeah, that'd be awesome because, like I said, I tried to hook up with him because some of the things he was saying on, I can't even remember what it was now, but it's been about a year and a half ago. But it was real interesting stuff he was saying.
Well, he wrote that book.
It made you think, you know what I mean?
I have a story for you about that. He wrote this book, and he autographed a copy and sent it to my grandson, who was in high school at the time. This is a number of years back. And my grandson was so proud. He took it to school and showed all his friends and was promptly expelled because the title of the book was Bloody Brazilian Knife Fighting Techniques. You know, my kid, my grandson was all, look what I got. Yeah, kind of weird. My daughter didn't talk to me for weeks. And we all laugh at it now, but back then, you know, he got expelled from high school showing the book. And that was Mad Abe. Abe may be a patron of mine. I have a bunch of different projects. I've met Tech Zombie. I've looked at Kickstarter. Here's my dilemma. I am 70 years old, and at age 58, I had a little girl physically die in my home, and it bankrupted me. And so at age 60, drug addict and all, I had to turn my whole thing around, and my primary source of income is Social Security. $800 a month. That isn't enough to live. And so I have to write and sell books, which is good because it just simply makes me have to produce a few more things. Okay, here's what I've got. So project number one needs $75,000 to publish 10 new titles that are all done, good to go. I'm even writing, that would include the non-local mind. And I want to do 10 of them. I want to do 2 more on the encyclopedia, finish up the 2 workbooks of the 3rd book. I'm doing Pantheon, Archetypal Gods in Daily Living, which is sequels to The Modern Alchemist, and it's 22 chapters to book on tarot. I actually taught Navy fucking SEALs to use that system of metaphor. It fucking works, and it's a really powerful tool, and pathworking is nothing wrong with that at all.
Watch the F-bomb.
What's that?
Gotta watch the F-bomb.
Oh, sorry. Yes, okay. No, sorry. Yes, okay. So there's nothing wrong with that construct of Jungian psychotherapy. It all comes from James Hillman. So you're going to read that, and then you're going to get where I'm coming from in terms of how to structure metaphor. This is a holographic thing that I'm going toward. Anyway, that's project number one. That's to do 10 titles this next year, 1 each month. And then I have a terabyte of Matt Stein and I doing workshops, 48 hours of studio time, 2 cameras, that have all these different workshops I've done on urban survival skills that I want to put together. Someone's got to go through that arduous editing. Then I've got, third project is I have 360 technical farm plans that I've developed, like the comfrey. And if you go to herbfarminfo.com, I have a bunch of PDFs up for sale, and I have 360 more that I'd like to add.
And you also have RichardAllenMiller.com.
Yes, that's working now, too. It's not like it was, because I don't have the budget yet to be able to do it. What I should tell you what I am is a starving artist that would like to move to the category of struggling artist. And well, it's the truth of it, you know. I mean, I am, for all of myself, I can make money. It's just getting the sand going. You notice I have not yet been on any of the major radios. How's that work? Alex Jones had me.
I think it sums everything up perfectly, mate. It's perfect that you.
Well, okay. So yeah, Nexus Magazine has given me the go to write a paper. I'm writing it right now today, called Fukushima, a potential extinction event. And I'm going to talk about infobots, and I'm going to run it down. And Duncan gave me the go-ahead to scare the bejesus out of everyone. However, leave them feeling empowered, like there's something, you know. Now here's our way out of jail.
Well, that's something we have to be concerned with. Fukushima is the biggest thing facing humanity.
I'm talking to some of the top people in the world right now because there isn't anything I can't understand. The problem is nobody knows. We have vectors, and you know they don't look good, you know, that kind of thing. But they're infernal. They're not real, and we don't really know. And guess what? There's a new life form that's living and growing healthy in these regions. It's a black slime mold. It started in Chernobyl, and now it's all over Fukushima. And they just yesterday found more serious plutonium radiation up north. It's bad. Japan is gone. That's what all of my radar says. It's dead.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I mean, they're selling lead-lined underwear to them people.
Rick,
a lot of things happen.
I've done a lot of self-testing, and I had an interview on Lugol's iodine, and
I don't understand what words you're using.
I've done a lot of personal self-research into iodine via Lugol's solution.
Iodine, yeah.
Yeah, and Dr. David Brownstein, he was the inspiration. Yeah, and potassium iodide is a good thing to have around. But
my cleanup model will most likely consist of psychedelic mushrooms, not pharmaceutical mushrooms, being cultivated on the land, and you go in and you harvest those and throw them deep down. You don't use them. They will bioremediate the radioactivity out of the ground quickly. The psychedelic philosophy looked like they worked better than agaricus or, psilocybin. But those have all been looked at, and while Stamets and others are talking about that, I'm going to recommend a psilocybin. And there's a certain kind, like the African one, that's really big, so you can get a lot of fruit. That's what you're trying to do, is fruit it up, pull it off.
I had this theory that, you talk about the food and the wheat and stuff. If we were able to get adequate nutrition, would the cells in our body and our physical body be able to actually deal with the radiation? Do you think?
No.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. Good luck with that.
I probably wouldn't go over to Fukushima and try it.
Yeah, the physical plane is like an analog to all the other planes. It's not like mutually exclusive. And so plutonium took the Earth 100,000 years to break that down, and we just went out and did a bunch of it. I think the most important thing that happens now is that all, and I mean you, everybody, participate in turning the switch off for nuclear power. You become proactive. If there's nothing else you do, it's nuclear energy and turning it off. And then whatever budgets remain be devoted to cleanup. And that's it. It's basically nuclear energy is not cheap. It is not clean. And the only reason we're doing it is because it has potential for weapons.
Yeah, it's the dumbest way to boil water there ever was.
Well, there's a lot better ways to do it,
Yeah.
It destructs water. Yeah. No.
I live in
fact, it takes me to another topic that I wanted to talk about, really important, just suggesting that the importance of the structure in water is probably even more important than your food selection. And food selection is what's killing us. And so there it is. Read it and weep. And we need to get a better sense of what water really means. We don't have a clue. Jerry Pollack has this book, Fourth State of Water. He's the guy that hired me when Boeing laid off 50,000 scientists. It was Jerry that hired me at anesthesiology to continue my work with the military. And so he's at the UW and has got this book out, and he's on TechZombie, eighthyearforce.com, and being promoted for fundraiser so Jerry can continue his work with water. There's a couple of other people that are doing work in water that I even like. Alex Kavarainen and Matti Pitkinen were French-Finnish. Alex is dead now, but Alex Kavarainen's work was exceptional. And I'm going to try to give you some leading edges in that with my own work in a holographic universe, how the structuring sets up a resonance thing. That's what I'm doing now, writing that in the non-local mind. Literally,
it's like setting an intent on the water you drink it, and like a prayer sort of thing. Yeah.
That's how it a motto,
Yeah.
Read it and wait.
It's very simple. It's very simple, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all been historically Willard water and the Holy Church, blessing the water. There it is. Read it and wait. There's a metaphor involved here. I haven't put my finger on it yet, but I'm close.
Yeah. I believe that there is something to the water deal.
Yeah,
I really do.
Jared Pollack, there's some really good lectures of his on YouTube that are over 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason I'm mentioning is to go to eighthyearforce.com, and there's fundraisers there. And I'm going to try to do something similar because I'm looking for patrons now. I need... I've got too many projects, and I'm too old. I can't do it all.
Yeah, the 4-year-old.
Assistant or two.
Well, okay, now here's another one. Stan Krippner just told me he's got a couple of grad students that he can give me to do their masters in writing my autobiography. Basically, it's going to be a picture book where they go from one news media article on me since I was a little tiny brat, and then I'll do one-liners and hooking them in so you get a better sense of it. It'll be a picture book.
Excellent.
Where I was, what I did. Yeah. What you saw.
Mate, you should be known. Like what you said about Alex Jones, it's a joke that you're not known, right?
Well, the thing is, see, Alex Jones had me scheduled right after Matt 3 times, and he canceled 2 of them because of the presidential debates. That's right when they were scheduled. He canceled me and did the presidential debates, and I never heard back from them. And then George Norrie, was that Tom Delahanty or something? It's his. And they never. They wanted a book of mine. I sent them the Power Tools book. Power Tools book is very killer. I'm getting a lot of.
It's awesome. I've read it.
Yeah, I'm planning to make an order soon, mate. That's for sure. Yeah.
Well, it's basically the 8 protocols I developed for Navy SEALs make us Superman, including your mind, like mine. And they're all, you can enhance. There's toys, there's foods, there's whistles, there's little gizmos you can use to enhance. I'm not even talking about Cyber City here. I'm talking about, continuous breathing. You learn how to use a didgeridoo, and you can go into an altered state that would appear as if you're doing Tai Chi, and in fact, you're doing martial arts. You're not quite conscious, but the breathing technique allows you to experience all your movements in slow motion. That's one chapter. Talk about how that works. So I turn paranormal, how you can become so precision oriented on all levels of consciousness. And these are enhancements, power tools.
I found out the Tim Leary book. It's info psychology. Is that does that ring a bell? On the 8th Circuit?
Well, it's one of the chapters in my book. I talk about metaphor and
yeah. I bought that Tim Leary book as well, so I've got a lot of reading to do. But
but the thing is, it doesn't matter whether everybody's got to get off the couch at some point, and whether you do it now or later, no worries. Time isn't real. You just get to come back and do it again. And so I decided to get on with it.
Also, I wanted to thank you about the cordyceps sinensis. I've been taking some from a company that you previously interacted with, and they're having huge benefit. So,
unbelievable. That's chapter 1. There it is. You start with food group, and you increase your juice. Yeah. Elixir Vitae, ATP.
Man, I got to get the book. Yeah.
Elixir Vitae, where are my virgins when I need them?
Yeah. There's a guy by the name of Leonard Orr. He did breathwork. Is that someone that you're familiar with? He was around that era that was before the internet sort of thing. So he's not that familiar, but you're talking about breathwork and stuff. He did a bit of stuff on that.
I know. There's actually quite a bit of information and literature on this. It's just having to sift through all the disinformation. There's so much of it out there that's unbelievable. I don't get it. That's probably, I have been told, no, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to even say it. It's just, I can't get, there isn't anybody like me.
Yeah.
And that, literally. And so what's that about? And I'm a starving artist. Literally, because I had a little girl die of leukemia in my home when I was 60. I was 60, less than 12 years ago. I'm 70 right now, and I had to start from scratch. I had to get off. I was medicating. Going through that for 3 years. I was Mercy flights, Ronald McDonald House. It's really depressing. It doesn't matter how strong you are. It'll break you down. And she died when she was 15 and a half. She died in my arms, literally. And then here I am having to write more books. It's all cool because I have to do this now, not that I want to do it or I'm driven to do it. I probably would be doing this anyway, but I have a motivation now because I need to make my rent. And I only have $840 Social Security. That's all I've got.
And they can find your books at oakpublishing.com.
Oh, yeah, I didn't mean to. Yeah, was that a whine?
No.
Mate, your wisdom needs to get out there.
Yeah, your wisdom needs to get out there, Doc. I agree. I really enjoyed the interview we had a while back. It was awesome.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're always welcome to, line me up like this. I have to leave in a few minutes. I had about a half an hour. I got to pick up my office manager. She's been ill. I don't get sick anymore. It's so wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the cordyceps did. Yeah.
I don't either.
Go ahead.
I'm just getting over a cold, and it's the first cold I've had in quite a while.
I try and do your 10,000 steps a day as well, mate. That helps.
How much?
10,000 steps. 10,000 steps.
10,000
steps. Like footsteps.
Grams?
No, just walking. Sorry.
I didn't understand.
I'm sorry, yeah.
What I'm trying to do is pump the polysaccharides through my system. It seems to be making me younger. Not. Yeah, don't get you.
I keep being asked who we're speaking with, and it's Dr. Richard Allen Miller.
He was Fox Moulder, basically, the real Fox Moulder. We're being honored by his presence, absolutely.
Look, back then, we knew about aliens, but we were more worried about what the Russians were doing. That's the truth of it. And the alien constructs were not nearly as important. I knew about Majestic. I knew about MJ4 and all of them. But I was MRU. I was above that, and our concern wasn't aliens like it is today. It was about what the Russians were doing.
You mentioned on the Ahmad interview that you met Krill, which was a huge thing that you've.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I don't know what that all means. It's like I ran into this paper this morning. There were guys talking about nanofilaments in the air from the chemtrails and how they're being used to reprogram the body.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Yeah, weird. It goes much worse today than back when. When I was in the 70s, it was all blue sky. We had no idea where we were going to go.
Yeah.
In the 80s, it changed. And that's why I went into farming and became a dirt farmer, because they were no longer interested in blue sky. It had to have application, or it wasn't of it. And that's when astral projection moved into the remote viewing category. Actually, Alex Kavarainen and Matty Pitkinen have both written on that very thing, and you can find that at Emergent Bulletin. I think it's emergentmindbulletin.com or something like that. Emergent Mind. It's seen on the internet. Maddie, who is it? What's her name? Oh gosh, who's the editor? She's Russian. Leon Sidorov is, she stopped to have some babies, but that bulletin is some of the finest minds in the world writing in that one. Emergent Mind. It's like Nexus, only another level up. It's scientists, mostly. It's on the internet. I'm sorry?
Do you need to get going, mate? I'd love to talk to you all day. But...
Yeah, I am. I'm going to get going now. Listen, it was wonderful talking with both of you for a minute.
Yeah, thank you for coming, mate. You made my early morning.
Us.
Yeah. You guys take care. Bye-bye.
You have a good day.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, Andre.
Ahmad, you rock. You rock.
I like Doc. He's cool.
Oh, he's very down to earth, mate. He's very genuine. I was actually wanting to ask if I mentioned about the cordyceps sinensis, these mushrooms that he cultivated, and I think he had a really big falling out with the company that he developed it all for, because he's like he says, he's a 4-year-old, right, with all this incredible knowledge, right?
With authorities over some of this stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, he's just innocent, right? And they all,
he wasn't trying to create some super drug. He was in the process of trying to create things that mankind.
Absolutely, and well, have a look at society, and the system's in control. They don't want us to have our full,
potential. No, they don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, because when we do have our full potential, and we have no need for them.
Yeah. And I mean, how I mentioned early on, I was going really in myself, right? I feel I can contribute a lot better, and I haven't really been doing it. And maybe writing a book and stuff like you're doing, right? But I feel, my logic is body, mind, heart. Because once you get the nutrition and yeah, go for it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, once you get the
I was just going to say what I'm writing is going to be taken more as science fiction.
That's all right. Get those creative juices going, mate. But once you get the body and the nutrition right, you can get on top of the ego, the shadow self, what you block that prevents your growth, and then you can go and live in the heart. So,
right.
So once the whole reason for us not getting the right nutrition in food, it's not about the flavor. It's about the energy and the nutritional content that allows us to function.
Most of the food that you get nowadays from corporation lacks the mineral trace elements that we're supposed to have.
Absolutely.
And these things, it doesn't seem as though that these little things in our food would make a difference, but they do.
Yeah, well,
and they know this.
Absolutely. And there's so many different distractions and stuff, and it's like death by 1,000 cuts because you don't know what's right. But that's where I said I've been disappearing, and I've been taking a lot of these things like the cordyceps and excess that he mentioned, and just feeling the effect and not interacting with others and measuring it in myself. And
well, we're a social being. You have to interact in order to be fulfilled.
I mean, maybe, not on the radio in that respect, but yeah, I do.
Well, any interaction, you have to have interaction. You can't go out in the woods and just spend the time completely alone. That just don't work. That's not part of our makeup. We are a social animal.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's what Richard says about sitting on the couch potentially, right? We're not contributing and doing stuff, so you need to get out there and interact with those that you're meant to interact with. You know, like
even if what you're contributing comes to nothing, at least you're trying.
Yeah, give it a crack. You know, the worst thing you can do is fail, but you gain wisdom from that, and
that's why no information that like our Thunderbird and Olive earlier, you might not resonate with their information, but there's truth in there somewhere.
Yep.
To each one of us.
Everyone's got a different perspective, so
right. You know, so they're contributing what their knowledge is in order to contribute to the whole.
You too, mate. You've got a great view as well. I mean, you've been listening and doing your radio show for years and hundreds of hours, right? So don't downplay your actual contribution either, right?
I'm in this for a selfish reason, and that's knowledge.
Well, it was mentioned earlier, right, about the spiritual, and Richard says this as well, which I love it. Or no, it's Gerald Salente. He says, a true spiritual renaissance is the search for inner truth. So what's your inner truth? And the thing, I read this book called Blink by Malcolm Gladwell, and it's about trusting your gut. And in that book, right, it'd be in every library, Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. It's fantastic. You read it in a day. And he talks about in that book is that when you listen to your gut, it's 80% right by statistical models, right? But the key when you start listening to the gut is it comes so quick. You know, it's like instant. It's like, oh, that's wrong, you know. But
and see, that's what I do. I mean, you've heard me say it before.
Absolutely, man.
I admit entirely that I know nothing about the chakras, nothing about the psychic abilities. I work off my gut feeling.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, and it's the way to go. And
I think it is. I mean,
well, I mean, they do
it. May not always be right, but it's 80 to 90%. It's usually pretty right.
I would say it's more efficient as well, mate. You know, because you don't dilly-dally, you don't doubt yourself, you don't go off and try and do a science model on the statistics on this, and you've worked it out quickly. And you know, if it's wrong, it's wrong. You learn the feeling and recognize why you experienced that and how you came to the conclusion that you came to, and then you rejig it, right? And you practice it. And it's like, oh, that's why. But
the more you use it, the more refined it becomes.
It's a muscle.
Right.
Yeah. And another...
I really don't know what... I'm at a loss to explain it myself, but it works. And I've seen it on other people work. And
yeah.
It gets better over time.
Well, I mean, I've heard you on radio shows, mate, and you underestimate your intuitive ability as well, right?
Well, I don't want to be looking stupid either now. You know what I mean?
Too late.
And I don't want to look condescending to people either, because I don't use it in order to be more than, how do I put it? Be above anybody else.
Yeah.
Because I'm fallible too, you know?
Yeah. I think that's in your nature, though, from the area of the world you come from as well, right? You come from a very humble existence, so...
Well, I don't know about humble. I mean, I'm kind of proud of things, but I don't let it rule me. See, the ego is a good thing, but you got to know when to allow your ego to stretch and when not to allow your ego to stretch.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard of Carl Gustav Jung? He was a psychologist.
I've heard the name.
Yeah, him and who's the other guy? The famous guy that is pretty much all psychology is based on it, Sigmund Freud. They were both working together and they had a big split. And Sigmund...
You know, Sigmund was a coke freak.
Yeah, he was totally supported by the institutions and the Tavistock Institute and then all the pharmaceuticals and all that, right? But Carl Jung, he had this analogy called the shadow self. And Michael Desarian talks about it as well. And what, if you look at Saturn from above and you see the rings are like the consciousness, right? Our awareness, our what we're aware of about ourselves. And then in between the rings and the planet, there's that shadow. And at the edge of the rings, there's the ego. And the ego protects us from our shadow. Because, I admit I've done things that haven't been in the best interest of others. They've been self-serving, and, most of us have done things and we don't want to admit it. There may be people that have sexually abused and stuff like that. And our ego protects us from that shadow because it may be damaging to us and we're not able to cope, right? But the courage is to face the shadow and explore it and, forgive ourselves and forgive others. And that what you get to is the middle of the planet, which is your true self, right? Because of these traumas in society, put all that stuff in the shadow. And then once you can deal with it and face it and not be in fear of it and accept yourself, you become, the most powerful that you can become. It takes a lot of courage, but you grow out of it. And that's what you're sort of saying, right?
When you look within yourself, ego is one of the things you have to confront. You have to look at it. You have to understand it. And if it's allowed to get out of control, it becomes a monster. You've seen it. You've seen people who think they're, way better than everybody else, and they're no more smarter than most average fifth graders.
Yeah. It's a wonderful...
But yet they think they are.
It's a wonderful servant, but a lousy master, right?
Right.
I love that analogy.
Once it gets to that, see, I think that's part of what's wrong with the world today. The collective ego is almost out of control. I mean, it's become a monster. And until it's reined back in and under control, we're going to have these problems that we have.
Yeah, the collective that you say, there's this external validation via others of ourselves, right? We're looking for others to...
There's nothing wrong with somebody saying, hey, you're doing a good job. It's how you take that comment to heart that makes the difference, not the fact that they're giving you a compliment. Take the compliment and move on. Don't relish in the fact of it.
But also, if you as an individual need that as something to validate you as an individual, you're looking at...
And there's something wrong inside.
Yeah, you have to have the courage to say, look, what's going on here, right? Why do I need this external to validate me? I'm me. I'm unique. I accept my uniqueness. And that you get a lot of power out of that. Because once you stop seeking external validation, you store your power. You're not giving it away to someone to give you the power over you, right?
JB put a question in there. It says, but the book blank, he said, learn everything first about a certain subject and then use your gut feeling. I was disappointed because I didn't want to do the learning part. Were you not disappointed?
The way I came about that and read it, say, in the past I was an IT engineer, right? I worked 10 years in IT at pretty high level sort of stuff. And what I realized is I was already doing it. Say in IT, I'd go in, I'd see an issue and I'd be like, that's blah, blah, blah. Wouldn't know where that came from. But then I went and validated it, right? So I found I was actually using it in some of the things I was doing, but it allowed me to see it as a way of using it further, so employing it. So, so everything about a certain subject, use your gut.
I don't find disappointment in learning myself. I mean, I don't think you need to learn every particular thing about a subject. I mean, you can understand mathematics without knowing trigonometry.
Yeah. Well, in that book, right, the intro was about the Gettysburg Museum and this ancient Greek statue, right? And it was, there was never like this, like you imagine the statue of David, right? a complete statue ever found. And, you know, all these experts from around the world that were masters in their field, they saw it and they just thought, it's beautiful, it's incredible, it just doesn't add up. And, you know, for years and years it sort of got proven that it was okay and stuff. And all these people saw it and they said, nah, you know, because from their research they'd worked out that, you know, never come across like a perfect statue. And down the track, many decades later or years later, they found that there was this particular form of marble or mold that grew on it, and for a statue to be like 5,000 years old or something, it had to be it grew at a certain rate, so it was very easy to...
Yeah, the patina on the rock grows at a certain rate.
Yeah, and it wasn't thick enough, so it proved that it wasn't, but it was like, there was, you know, everyone believed it because it was just so beautiful, but it just didn't add up to a lot of people. And it was like, these people had a gut reaction, but because they didn't trust their gut, they went through all this science and they bought it and it took 10 years and all that, and it proved it in the end, you know. It gives many different examples, even on relationships. And it talks about how, you know, this, I forget the name of the professor, but he studies relationships, and he's done like 10,000 studies on different relationships. And he's got like 150 different values on the strength of a relationship. And he said if a couple showed content, it's the worst possible outcome. And yeah, you know, because he'd done so many, and he'd go, but content, you know, animosity and all this, and he could sense it and see it, and he just knew within a minute of watching a couple together whether they're going to fail or not. And it's, you know, it's just...
I don't think he can do that.
Yeah, I know, but it's just interesting, right? Because once you get a certain level of experience, and I liken to it to, you know, you read a lot, right? You may not consciously remember a lot, but everything goes into your subconscious. So in that moment...
Yeah, your subconscious collects every bit of information out there that your conscious mind isn't even aware of.
Absolutely. And we use things...
I mean, it's all there.
We use techniques like hypnosis and stuff, or meditation to access it. But, you know, I remember coming across this guy called Paul Shield, and it was like speed reading, and he taught you to read 40 books in a day just by flicking it. But the way that you use the book is you actually ask a question in the book. Like, say, this Soul's Code that I was talking to Richard Alan Miller about. It's like, what's my code? And I might go and flick it and find it. But because you can perceive it at that rate, but your conscious can't. And I feel that using the Blink book, it also really triggered me to really recognize that I trust my subconscious more than my conscious, and it's there. Or I wouldn't use those terms for my conscious and subconscious, but I know it's in my subconscious. So in the moments, you know, there's a lot of information in there that I can use to trigger things as well. And it really, I use that book as an example because it is a really good book, but you know, the more that you acquire, there's more tools you can use. And, you know, sometimes you have to work at it, sometimes they come easy, but once you learn the mechanism to go the hard path, you can usually find the easier path after that. But I hope that all made sense. It's a bit of a...
Oh, it does. It does. I know that the subconscious and the conscious mind, it reminds me of that yin and yang again.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with your left and your right brain.
Yeah. I think...
I don't think we could exist without it in this reality.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of areas where we can improve on accessing our subconscious. I think it's something that we're not told about, you know.
If we could learn to use the two in unison, there's no telling what we could accomplish.
Yeah.
As a race, I think.
Mm.
I think our spirit is what keeps the two of them working as a unit as much as it does now. That's the Trinity that they talk about.
Mm. How long does the roundtable go for?
Until I hang it up.
Okay. How long have you been going for? Has it been a couple of hours? Or?
I started about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock or something. We've been joined by JB in the chat room. At least I think he's there.
On mute?
I'm not sure.
I'm here. I'm just listening for a minute.
Pretty strange stuff, isn't
it? He's listening to the delay.
Oh, he's listening on the chat player.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed that interview you did with Richard in July. It's very, very good.
I've talked to him a few times. He's come and joined us on roundtables before.
Yeah,
talked to him on Facebook.
It's fantastic.
I think he's a very insightful man.
And I think we've only just scratched the surface of his stuff, right?
It would have been nice if he had got to the point where he is today back when he was 40.
Yeah.
But it learned.
That's only 6 years away. It's like that was all right. But like you guys are having a really very interesting. This has been amazing. I've been enjoying this for a very long time now.
Good.
Blink. I agree with that. The thing that you missed out was it wasn't like you said to him. I just said about he was looking at these couples and being able to look at their relationships in like a couple of minutes or something like that. But these couples had also gone to professional counsellors and had weeks of counselling, and he was able to come to the same conclusion or better.
Okay.
Within.
Yeah, I remember that. I haven't read that book for about 7 years, and I've lent it out, and I haven't got it back, and I'm due to reread it because I think my awareness has gone to another level, right? And I remember just that the main thing out of that relation thing was he recognised when a person in a relationship spoke to another or the other in the relationship in a contemptuous way, and it was the worst thing you could do. So I took that on board, and I never show or try and issue contempt to another at all. Yeah, but it also talked about when Pepsi and Coke were having a battle, and Coke went about trying to change the whole recipe because Pepsi beat them on a sit test, and then they got a lot of backlash, and then they went back to sort of their... Yeah, it's a very interesting book. Highly recommend it.
But you're talking about higher things, though. Just so continue what you were saying before, just like adding that little tiny bit into Blink. I like what you're saying. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I mean, perception is a muscle, right? And you just need to use it. Or you may already be using it. You just don't even have the awareness that you might be using it. Like, I go to meditation groups and deal with a lot of psychics and stuff, and some of the most psychic people aren't even aware they're a psychic. And, yeah, well, I mean, if you've had it all your life, how do you know what it is, right? And
if you don't know what normal actually is, you don't know that you're abnormal.
Yeah, so until you actually mention it to them, and, when like I mentioned...
That color tastes great.
Well, I mentioned about seeking external validation, which is you're giving your power away. But me as an individual, I can validate others proactively. It's very powerful. And when you say, like, people that are psychic, I'm saying, do you know you're psychic? I can feel your third eye, and your perception is like blah, blah, blah. And they're like, wow, really? I said, you should do meditation and stuff and go and do self-development and, go get some healing or something like that. And, it's very powerful, right? But we've all got the muscles. Some people are gifted more than others, and I really feel fundamentally that if we're given the right nutrition...
That I was talking about with the gut feeling. I mean, once you start using it, you start developing. It develops itself.
Yeah, you recognize it.
And you start recognizing, and you recognize, and then when you come to the realization that you do have the ability, it escalates even faster.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you have to trust it, because if you don't, then you just go back to normal again.
Yeah, and that's faith, right? you trust yourself, you have faith in yourself, and you know, I actually developed this doing currency trading because I used very technical graphs and charts and, you know, the up and downs, and right, and I worked out 4 different things combined, right? And when they all hit the certain thing in each of them in the same time, it was a good trade. And my gut would, you know, when I went against it, when I didn't listen to it, I'd watch the trades go really well and I didn't make money. And then what happens, so when you're trading, because it's so volatile stuff, you get really, really scared, right? Because you're worrying about loss, and I've lost $500, $1,000 in like seconds, right? And it's like, oh my God. But what happens is that you do it and you lose and you fail and you feel that failure. But after a while, you know what it feels like and you know how to prevent it. And then once you get into that situation, you recognize the gut and you trigger it and you go for it and you succeed, and it's like confirmation. It's very, very powerful, you know, and you don't have to do it trading. You just have to, you know, you come against someone and it doesn't feel right, you know, or something like that.
And a wonderful thing you've had in your life is that you've learned that, like, it seems clear to me that you know that you could go back to that probably not knowing the things you know now, but physically you could go back to that world and take in the right psychotropic drug and be able to function very well and live very well off your skills.
Yeah.
But now you know that abundance does not come from that nonsense paper IOU money, because it isn't IOU to one person to the other.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not a barter system, and most of it's being sucked out by the parasite that lives above us.
Yeah. I actually taught myself currency trading to separate myself from the world and learn about the world. And I started with, you know, what's the thing called the Federal Reserve, you know? What's this crap? And then I was like, oh my God, Eustace Mullins, my mate. And then Geo Griffin, and it was like, you know, I was just like, what else don't I know? What else don't I know? And I was just, I've been addicted to knowing, like learning for like the last 4 years, right? And I watched like 7-hour Michael Desarian lectures all in one hit and eat it up, right? And it's just like, yeah, I mentioned IT, right? I used to learn these big Microsoft books that bore you to hell, right? And I realized that I had this passion to learn, right? If I can learn that crap when I don't want to learn it, right? What can I achieve when I find this stuff like Denny and Brinkley, Saved by the Light, right? And, you know, when I want to learn it, it was just like, holy cow, just devouring it. And it's, you know, ever since then I've just been, it's good time to be alive, right, for that. Because like you mentioned the man about Richard, right? 40 years ago there was no internet. You know, how would you really find this information? I mean, you know, there was the odd book here and there, and it's just like, you know, that he created a lot of it, you know.
Well, see, back then you had to go to libraries, and every library didn't have the same book. You had to search out different libraries, and it was a pain in the butt.
Patience, right? We had patience. We had patience. Because
But they had to do more than that. I bet they had to meet people in the field as well. So you're rubbing shoulders with bad boys. It's like, oh dear.
Do you know much about Richard Alan Miller?
I've heard him before. I've heard him on other shows. Not much though.
Yeah.
And like I'm very interested now. I put up in my bookmarks.
Yeah.
He was a physicist, and he's turned away from being a physicist in order to embrace the more natural.
He was the head physicist for the Pentagon in the 70s, and when he realized that his inventions like synthetic telepathy were being used as weapons, he went from Navy intelligence, which was a sea, to becoming a farmer in the dirt in the middle of America. He just quit.
Is he the one that invented a device that gave a guy hearing? He just put it on his head. He could hear opera music again, and the guy cried. Is that the same guy?
I haven't heard that. But I'm sure that
his device for this.
Yeah. I'm sure that technology is the same, right? Yeah.
They're trying to use against us with smart meters and everything else now. But did you hear that? When I was listening to you guys, I was glad that I didn't get in, to be honest, because I just wanted to know about the soul and the spirit. But I heard when I heard him speak, He's not even though he's of such a high level, his mind has not been confined to just doing straight down the narrow between A and B. And the big guys always like that if they feel like they can control you. So you can get up there then. If they feel they can't control you, you're as good as just dust to throw you away.
Yeah.
If they think you're dangerous, then you have to worry. And if people don't know who you are, and then, but for him, the music of his mind, it was a massive channel that covered so many things. I see this in all the genius.
Oh, he is, mate.
And I don't have.
He is. He's got an eidetic memory, which means that everything he looks at, he's got it photographic memorized in his mind. And
it's better than that.
Yeah. When he was in high school, he developed a technology in the science fair that was used on the Mariner spacecraft that went past the moon and the Mars to measure the amount of water on Mars from his high school, you know. So, what he talks about.
He has a unique mind.
Yeah, when he couldn't find his answers in physics, he turned to magic. Because not everything makes sense physics-wise, right? So he started reading all the texts and stuff in the 70s. And
the thing is everything didn't fit together physics-wise. That's why he went to magic.
Well, science always proves itself wrong, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, science is fantastic, but it's just like, oh, well, this is right now, you know. We've improved it, you know. It's like, no, you're wrong.
Well, true science is you gather data, you create a thesis,
yes,
and then you create a theory, and then you're supposed to tear the theory apart.
Yep.
And they don't do that.
A lot of theories become
they take them as facts.
Yeah, they make them gospel, right?
That's exactly, and we have to follow them, even though they're wrong. Whereas magic, define magic. It's entirely different. That's what the old science is. Call them alchemists.
I understand anything you're saying there, JB. You sound like
Transformer.
If I speak slowly, can you hear?
No, you got a lot of static. You might need to reconnect.
Okay.
That's strange, wasn't it?
Optimus Prime. We had Optimus Prime join.
I'm old school. I said C-3PO in Star Wars.
I'm not quite as old, but I am old. Are you there?
Yeah.
JP.
I'm going to have to bring this to an end before long because I got some producer training to do here in a little while.
Well, I thank you for bringing me in and grabbing Richard, mate. I was glad to have a quick chat.
It's been a long time since you've been on the air with me.
Yeah, I've been a bit quiet, but I'll try and poke my head around here and there. And I was hoping to catch you, so I'm really glad because I wanted to wish you a happy Christmas, mate. I know you've been working very hard, right? So.
Saturn's Day is pretty important to most people.
Thank you for both, all of your content, Adam and Ahmad, and also to you, Andre.
Yeah, thank you for coming in.
That was before you got cut off, we didn't hear you.
It doesn't really matter. I was simply going to say the scientists of old were called the Magi, as they are in the Bible. The Magi. They don't work in the same way as scientists. Scientists generally will work in exactly the way you defined them, Ad, whereas the Magi didn't work that way at all. They worked from a much bigger grounding, and that included conscious, whatever you want to call it. It was more than that.
I know that science has been infiltrated with
agendas.
Yeah, and we all know that who pays for research has the rights to the research and can determine what they allow out to the public.
Yeah,
and what gets used. We all know that military is the biggest research funder out there.
Yeah, vested interests, right?
Right. There's always some kind of. There's no true science anymore. That's all. How much it could benefit a particular person who's funding the research.
Exactly.
Very few true scientists out there. There are some still out there now. Don't get me wrong. Most of it is corporate funded or military funded.
Like what I said a bit earlier, though, I think we're living in a time where the banks are just going to be proved once and for all invalid, and that's why Bitcoin, I see that as the alternative that has come about organically from the corruption. And like I said, the $29.616 trillion that have been given to the banking system, it's just crazy, and it just creates inflation and devaluation. So, yeah, we're living in a time where all these things are just going to prove invalid, and they're not going to be, they're not going to be able to be maintained. So.
No, they won't. I agree with you. I totally agree with you. The problem is, for me, is that there are people like us here, and there are people like them at the top.
Yeah.
And then in the middle, you've got this massive hierarchical herd. It's a hierarchical herd that it sits in a pyramid, and each one of them, it's not just like one person at the top. That's the problem. You have the same thing happening right at the lowest level. They have formed their own little pyramids. They're all interlocked together, and then they will only stick to that, and they will only follow one way, and that's dynamic. So they're constantly fighting with each other, like crabs in a bucket, as I said earlier. Crabs in a bucket. They don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so what happens is that it's like, who's going to lead the crowd? Or shall we just lead the crowd and like find our way out of here? Because sometimes that's what I feel like when I wake up in the morning. Just leave them.
Yeah.
You're going to have people that, regardless of what you do, they're not going to open up their eyes and say, well, this is the way it is, Even though that I don't care how much percent information you give them, how much proof. If a UFO lands on the White House lawn and the aliens step out and say, hey, we're here, there's somebody out there who's going to say it's all BS and it's government run.
Exactly.
Regardless of what you do, there's going to be some you cannot help no matter what.
I feel, JP, that, and I mentioned this earlier, that it's going to be a lot of individual traumas that will cause each individual to question and really re-examine, and that will hit the collective. So I think there's a lot of events going on, like Richard mentioned, about Fukushima and stuff, that will start really, and the financial system that will not, in one aspect to observe, be beneficial, but there'll be compounding benefits from that. And I feel that I feel
they'll be hitting. They'll be hitting every. They are doing already.
Yeah,
they'll just intensify.
Yeah,
even in my own home, they have already intensified things. I said I'm sorry, but you made the bill. The bill is wrong here. That's not my meter. And this machine has sent me something which is astronomically incorrect, which I have to face. I spoke to an ombudsman about another financial deal, but she, rather than looking at the proof that was in front of her, has been intimidated by the authority that was speaking to her. So it was a constant battle, constantly. But it doesn't matter, because each day I just become more and more beautiful. And the more beautiful I look in the mirror, the more beautiful I am in the mirror, I can tell you that's going to work on you to other people. I just need to change my voice. And it's not JP, it's JB. JP's is very much nicer than me.
Thank you, JB. Sorry to hear that personally.
No, he's lovely, but
Oh, about the
he says things correctly.
The bill thing.
I just say whatever I think. And there's another. I can't remember the name of this book. But there's a book. Is it The Silent Warrior, The Peaceful Warrior? I love that book.
Yeah.
Have you talked about that?
I've got that, and the second one. There's one after that where he's interacting with a female kahuna from Hawaii. Yeah, yeah, they're both fantastic. I've lent them out, and I just say read this, and people come back in a day or two. They're like, couldn't put it down. Way of the Peaceful Warrior.
Oh.
Yeah. Way of the Dan Millman.
Excellent.
Dan Millman. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, that's it. Thank you. I didn't know there was a second one. I shall look for that.
Yeah, it's something about the peace. Like, it's a subtle change on the Way of the Peaceful Warrior. But if you go to Amazon, you'll see it. Yeah.
Andre, there's another thing though. You know, like you said you went within and looking at yourself.
Yes.
When I look at myself, it's like when I have the gravitas to do something, I generally just go back to my old patterns, which is like everything is spotlessly clean, everything is correct, and nothing gets in my way. But I don't want to do that. I want to be able to create again. You can create in software. I know you can understand that. But I want to be able to create something in other forms, visually. You know what I mean?
Plant a garden.
Yeah, this is London.
Yeah.
I was only joking anyways. I was just messing.
Yeah, I go through these personal inner battles all the time. And, like, say, writing a book or reading a book, sitting down and devoting, like, a day or two to a book is been a challenge and stuff. And the willpower thing is quite interesting, finding the willpower to change. I'm not a master.
You say something earlier. Willpower, yes, that's a massive subject again. But just before you go into that, the speed reading. I can't remember what was the name.
Paul Shield, photographic reading. Paul
Shield. I think I know who he is. But I tried speed reading. And yes, what I was listening to them, it worked. Yes, I can read. Oh, I can actually understand what I'm doing, but just by scanning the lines, rather than my eyes won't do that. They will read every single word and understand exactly what each word means and how it all fits together.
Yeah,
and it just totally. That's how my mind naturally reads things.
I enjoy reading that way, though. As well. Like, I feel like I'm missing the book if I'm speed reading. I enjoy just. Like devouring every word in a book and just soaking it all in.
Especially a book that has spirit behind
Dr. Miller has joined us back.
Yeah, I just got back in for a minute. Sorry about that. I having to leave earlier. I had to pick up my office manager.
No, mate. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you bet. Well, this is how I play. I'm taking a break from my writing, and I heard you beep over here because it was still going, and I saw you had a thing going, and so I thought I'd pop in for a minute.
Yeah, what you said about how in the 70s it was blue sky and it changed.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. Because
well, it
did. I noticed it myself.
I think.
Yeah, Leon Sidoroff said that she noticed a brain drain in the 80s. Now, Leon Sidoroff is the editor of Merchant Mind Bulletin, and she's brilliant. And she observed that. That was when they were putting out that zine. It was this time of Boing Boing and some other zines that were out. She observed that there were a change in the intentionality. Why things got funded.
Yeah, I think
no longer interested in advancing technology. It wasn't about advancing technology at that point.
Like Rick, today, how. We have all this amazing technology around us to gain the information. When you went away, Ahmad and I and JB that's on the call, we were talking a bit what it was like in the 70s to find the knowledge. We're so blessed at the moment, like with things like Amazon and stuff. How was it to actually acquire the knowledge or the information or the...
Yeah, well, the internet has become our hard drive for pretty much all of us. I'm trying to remember this movie, if you guys can help me. It's like Blaze or something. It was a sci-fi movie. A model was a kick-ass martial artist that owned a bar in the edge of America, and they're trying to get illegal passports so they can go into Canada in the free zone.
Was it Pamela Anderson?
Yeah. What was it?
Oh, Pamela Anderson. What was it? You must know, guys.
Anderson, you got it.
Yeah, that's it.
Nice going. It's been driving me nuts all morning trying to remember that.
Was Pamela Anderson the name of the movie or the person?
What was it called?
Barbed wire.
Barbed wire.
Pamela Anderson.
Barbed wire. There you
Can't be that young.
Thank you. Yes, I forgot that.
You know, you also, in one of your recent interviews, you talked about this movie in the 80s about this alien that was after heroin addicts. You called it Blue Sky.
Oh, Blue Sky.
No, it's called
Sky.
Liquid Sky. Liquid.
Or Liquid. Yeah, Liquid Sky.
Yeah.
Blue Sky. Liquid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a very creepy movie. Yeah. Yeah, especially since it's probably true. That's what a black slime mold is living in Chernobyl right now. You know that life form could be a competitor in terms of trying to terraform the Earth. That it would be a kind of life form that you would expect to be down in galactic center, down near the black hole where all the stars are. That we're out here in a very safe little incubator kind of thing. And this is a perfect place for the gods to, work with.
We're in the backwater of nowhere, aren't we?
Yeah, kind of. Sol is out there on the rim. Scientific American actually did one of those series. You know how they put a bunch of different authors together on a topic, and it was about life in the capital of Sol, where we are in our relative position of things. So it was an interesting concept. And that that slime mold now is actually all over Chernobyl. And now, just yesterday, as I said earlier, they found some plutonium particles that went up north of Fukushima. So,
well, Dr. Miller, could they do you reckon they could trap our souls if we're reincarnated on this planet, in this world, in whatever that is? They could trap our souls in some technological body that could exist with the mold and just be stuck here forever.
You mean slumming down here in force space?
It's already slumming as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, that's what wetsuit, you went down and hung out with the fish. Interesting. Well, I have no clue. I can tell you that if you can imagine it, it's probably true, and even more. That's probably true.
What do you think of, do you know Dr. Walter Russell and Lau Russell?
Yes. Yes.
What do you think of their work?
Well, cue me up. You're talking about the guy that did water? Which one?
No, he was a friend of Tesla. And he's sort of like a pre-version of the electric universe. He sees everything as frequency as well.
Gotcha, plasma, yeah. Well, of course, state of matter. That's Warren Thornhill, some of those guys. Yeah. No, I remember Russell had done stuff after Northrop and Burr at Yale in the 30s. Russell was what, in the 50s?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yes, that would make sense.
50s. He wrote something called the something universe. What was it called? Okay, a long time ago. I did some reference to him in the holographic concept, as I remembered that. But that's a long time ago. I haven't even run that name in a while. Russell wasn't he after at Yale also?
Ignore me. Let me give you some more information so that you can have the right key points to find
who
I'm talking about. Okay.
Richard, I meant
you're going to go on.
Well, I don't know. You're going to give him key points?
Well, no, he's going off online. What he's doing is going to
okay.
Like I did barbed wire. I knew it was it's a Tarantino kind of movie. There's a new one out with a couple of vengeful women with their
I've never seen the movie Barbed Wire myself.
You have not seen Barbed Wire? Oh, it's an absolute cult classic.
Yeah, I'll put the link in for you. And
Barbed Wire. Yeah, you got to check that one out. That's a good movie.
I'm not much of a Pamela Anderson fan.
Huh? Pamela Anderson, yeah. Yeah, she knew how to do it, I'll tell you.
But there's good lessons in movie if you observe it rather than watch it. Right, there's lessons in everything, isn't there? So
that's right.
Now, some of these newer movies coming out, I've seen Ender's Game. That's awesome.
Ender's Game was actually written I read it when it first came out, and it was about 4 and 5-year-olds, not 15-year-olds. And the reason the writer of that had to change and make it for older people is because the kids couldn't do the acrobatics that the young kids in the book did.
I
don't believe that.
I actually saw that movie recently, right? And the very interesting thing was Ender. They've got this quote about the more you know your enemy, you love your enemy. And at the end, he goes off and tries to connect and redeem himself with the enemy. It's very interesting.
Well, that's the part that made us God's favored. You know, when you want.
I haven't seen this movie, but I'm going to interject slightly. Yes, Dr. Walter Russell would have been around that time. His thing was The Secret of Light, The Message of the Divine Iliad.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he was talking about the electromagnetic fields and the way they interfered with biological processes.
Yeah, so it was a part of what Tesla was doing, but like he expanded upon it quite a lot. But in that movie, which I haven't seen, if they changed the ages of them to 15 or the adolescents, it's because it's more acceptable to the public.
Well,
it's
that's
the same
right.
idea.
But
they
you know
would have.
what? When the kids are like under 4 years old, they're more indigenous than even Aborigines.
Yeah.
And that's been proven time and again in the way they can garden.
I know you went to the Nexus, and the near-death guy is Danny and Brinkley, but the other guy there was also Harry Oldfield. Harry Oldfield he's got his own technology around Keelian technology, and
I met Oldfield. I liked him as a gentleman and his wife. I enjoyed them. I have disproven brilliant photography in the early years, and I wrote a technical paper on bioluminescence, which was in between the holographic concept of reality and the embryonic holography paper that I wrote. And that will be a chapter in a new book I'm writing called Spook Central.
Wow. I love this. Where do you now that you've seen all of these things, where would you say that your core starts from? Is it from spirit? Does it come to you divinely? It must come to you divinely. You must have some sort of connection that way.
How about that?
What is it?
Yeah. I'm a Satangi. I was initiated by Charan Singh. When Charan Singh chose me for initiation, he looked me straight in the eye. This is a true story. And he said at the moment of my death that he personally would be there to take me across the abyss.
Wow.
Now yeah.
Man, I've got DMT going down my spine.
Well,
that's cool. That is very cool. That is very cool.
I do all the rituals. I do all the observances. I'm trying to actually walk my talk.
Hey, Richard.
Hi there.
Is it Richard?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Payne. Yeah. I'm going to bring the convo down a little bit. I want to ask your opinion about what do you think is going to happen in the near future. Now, we are still in the year of the snake, and if you go back 12 years, we had 9/11. You go back 12 years before that, Tiananmen Square. We can even go back to 1941, year of the snake, Pearl Harbor. 12 years before that, the Great Depression. So I think we're in this year. It will end January 31st. Do you think something might go down?
Yes, I already know what's going to happen. Some of my buddies at JPL have already got their go bags. So what does that tell you? We're going to go through ISON's debris trail that was left when it went into the sun, breaking down. That's why it got so bright. It was actually in 3 pieces at that massive pieces. And when it came around the other side of the sun, it was just enough to fall back into the sun and left a serious debris trail that the north part of North America will be going through January 15th through the 26th. And
well, do you know that JP Morgan has a conference on January the 15th in San Francisco and in London? So those big corporate guys, they're getting together on that day in London and San Francisco. So
I'll tell you what
to keep them safe or to take them all out at the same time.
I think we're going to see a great light show. I think that most of it was ice, and so when it comes down into our atmosphere, it's going to be brilliant. There are several pieces that have been described as city killers. Nobody knows how that's going to work, probably in the ocean, statistical inference. However, I'm going to suggest somewhere between January 15th and through the end of the year, end of January 30th, we may enjoy some of the grid going down for a couple of days. And because of the comet. The problem is ISON was mostly ice, and it left this incredible rump of debris. And we're about to go back through it again. It's there's a model on the internet you can find that actually it's prediction showing. It's from NASA and JPL. It's a JPL.
Yeah,
video.
I was saying that. And we're going to get double dusted through that January 15th period.
It's hard to tell how much of it is to make it through or not.
I'll give you this, Alan. Can I give you this? On Comet ISON's specific dates, like October 1st over Mars, the US government shut down. On Perihelion Day on the 28th and 29th of November, depending on where you're at on the planet, we had the Pope come out and say he's going to move the power away from the Vatican. And then the UN said North Korea starting their nuclear reactor, which I find bogus anyway. I don't think they could even burn rice. But you can go back to March when we had Comet Pan-STARRS, perihelion with the sun on the 13th, and we got the new Pope. What I see is a kind of code. What happens above happens below type deal. And what I'm seeing is the propaganda behind North Korea. They had the wet dream about nuking America. Americans eat snow, blah, blah, blah. This will play out like 9/11 did, where when they hit, people will automatically think for themselves and go, aha, that's what they wanted to do. Of course, it makes sense, like 9/11, it was BS, Muslims were programmed through the movies, such and such. And so when it happened, it made sense that it was Muslims because they hijacked planes, they blow themselves up. That's what we were told. So it made sense. So I'm thinking North Korea is going to be blamed for a type of mushroom cloud event at some point.
Well, I'll tell you what I do know, that it was Joseph Campbell that said that when you see the kingdom of the Father on earth, the apocalypse has already occurred. It is perpetual in its potential. Now, this means it's an archetypal thing and part of our collective unconscious, and that no matter where we are in our intellectual, spiritual, or levels of evolution, we're going to have an archetypal form of doomsday. It's part of the package. And whether it's 3 minutes to midnight or 3 milliseconds, what it does is it brings back the whole concept of the nature of time and what the method of death means, what it actually literally means, where time stops and you're now in the moment. I don't know. I have ideas. They're arbitrary because they're based on assumed truths and belief systems, which are arbitrary. And so what I try to do as best I can is to somehow use those energies as a tool rather than a limitation. And so man does not have rights because that would presume he had full disclosure. And so what he does have is responsibilities. And the problem is most people have not yet learned how to listen to themselves. Because on that Xavier Chow movie that we mentioned earlier, the Astral City, the concept of it is that the physical plane is not real. What you experience in the physical plane is your fever. This is where you go to be sick spiritually. Now, if you look at the metaphor like that, then you realize listen, what's happening is there's a bunch of sociopaths that are running everything. And they're crazy. They're out of control. And whether or not we stop it or the earth stops it, to believe that you could geoengineer and control weather, the only thing I know that absolutely controls that is the sun. And really, there isn't anything that comes even close to it.
The Son of God. S-O-N.
Well, there you go. It's a metaphor.
Or S-U-N. Yeah. It is, isn't it?
Yes,
It
and
truly
you can
is.
look at it that like the son of the sun, and the Van Allen belt, and this radiation shield that we have that somehow.
Well, do you think we can get past the Van Allen belts? Do you think it's actually a metaphor?
Don't get him started on that.
That old mythology. Give me a fucking break. Yeah,
Well, no, you can get into details. You can get into details there, Pony. But like, I think it's very simple. We've all climbed up the social ladder and the corporate ladder. That's nothing. There's nothing up there. We've come back down. And what it's really about is Jacob's ladder.
This is our first time in known history that we've been able to penetrate the atmosphere. Unless you take the Vede text as literal.
When you're in deep space, you're in deep trouble. You have no protection from anything. That's one of the reasons why we're very fortunate to be out here on the rim. Now, listen, of course the astronauts are radiated massively, like getting the equivalent, going past the Van Allen belt is equivalent to when they did the moon and they start to get out toward Mars. You know, you're being exposed. That was always the shielding thing. I could never understand why they chose monolithic circuits and the idea of transistors over alternate directions for computers. I was at MIT taking NOR-NAND logic from a Corning physicist, a guy from Corning, teaching how to use fluidic devices and stacks of, Schmidt triggers and switching devices for deep space, because they did not have it's like Tesla. The technology moved in one direction over the options because of marketing. And it would be, if you wanted to suggest that solid-state physics came from aliens, Roswell, whatever, that would be like leaving Flintstones in a rain. Solid-state physics is not at all safe in deep space. Neither is man. There was, in Scientific American, several articles, and then they stopped. That's what I do. I'm a reader. I watch when things stop.
Yeah.
Notice things like, and that's what I did for the military. And what I noticed, there was this article, I think it was out in 2010, about a new kind of spandex material with monolithic copper weave in a geometric form in the suit that would reflect gamma rays. I saw that article. I never saw anything further on that. That is what's needed, is a type of protection going through into deep space when you come out of the Van Allen belt and you get exposed to hardcore space. The differences in the gamma rays and exposure ratios, and the problem is we don't really know what the Becquerel reading things are for toxicity. We know that there are vectors and that certain things seem to coincident, like the 5 million birds that died on the Australian coast because of that fish they're eating. It could have been red tide, but who knows? It's just, the problem is isolating variables to really know, and that's the real concern I have about Fukushima and what we're doing.
Dr. Russell, don't have any concern whatsoever. We'll get you one of those outfits next time you're walking past Pamela Barb Wyatt Anderson.
Yeah.
And then you'll be safe.
So, well, that's what I need. Yeah, right. In the future, we can all go to Canada. That's how that movie ends. Yeah.
Sorry, just lightening the mood. Sorry.
Yeah. Listen, Canada has already started their dosimetry reading. And so, we're supposed to not even see it here on the western shores from Fukushima until March. March 20th is what the Korean model shit suggests. And the problem is that that's the best case scenario. That's not the worst one. And that's why Canada has already started their studies, just like they did with logging. They're not going to make the same mistakes America has. They're not doing any kind of air testing. Nothing. And the planes coming in from LAX, from Asia and right now are now having to be taken away and cleaned because of the particulate that they pick up in the stratosphere. That's how bad it is.
I don't expect anybody to look after me as far as governments are concerned. I think that the deal is done. It's about us looking after ourselves then.
Listen, the way it all works is that all countries use their mafia for cleanup, garbage disposal. And Germany has been hooking all the waste from Europe over into Africa for the last 20 years, and why there's so many Radcon 5 level alerts over there, and all the kids are sick. And now,
but you know, it's not the government, is it? It's like it's above the government.
Private industry. TEPCO is not the government. TEPCO hired Yakuza. They're the ones hiring all the people to go in to clean it up.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Richard, this biosphere that we exist in, that all life exists in, it's been smacked a few times by asteroids, and it's taken a long time to recover. Now, we're at a point in human existence where technology can get us off this rock. Also, the radiation effect. Now, I'm thinking, just to throw it out there, junk DNA is, for us, it will turn on when we're ready to traverse through space and time, or what have you. Now, what I'm thinking is there's two ways of thinking for Fukushima. I mean, Chernobyl and over 3,000 nuclear tests, whatever. Fukushima is really nothing. But let's say it is something, and we've got two choices. We're either dead, the whole planet's dead, or we adapt. And I think we're going to adapt, and this is the junk DNA. It will switch on.
Well, something's going to adapt, not man necessarily. Man's already on Mars. And look, that's the get-out-of-jail card. That's why we were always interested in Mars. It had water.
Don't want to keep all your eggs in the same basket.
Well,
that's the story I know.
Just space and time has everything. There's water. The sun produces water, so everything has water. I mean, really.
Yeah, even EO. Did you read that latest on that? It's unbelievable what we're discovering. There's the possibility of life everywhere.
Oh, no doubt. I think there's life within the dark matter of space itself, and it just exists like ants do.
What do they call it? Spam.
The dominant species is not the termite. It's most likely is going to become black slime mold, because it really likes it in Chernobyl. It is everywhere there. And now it's starting to show up everywhere around Fukushima and slightly north.
But what I wanted to say was, if you remember 9/11, do you remember the Wolf Blitzer thing where he goes, change in the Middle East is likely to take 100 years, barring some cataclysmic event like a new Pearl Harbor, right? So let's take that and change it. Change in the human species is likely to take 1 million years, barring some catastrophic event like a Fukushima. And bang, within 100 years, we adapt, we're ready, we can go, we can traverse space and time out there, truly, because our junk DNA is switched on.
Here's bad news on that. I've had the good fortune to have studied with John Lilly, and I got familiar with dolphin, and basically am firmly convinced that there are 4 mammals on this planet that are designed better than man, brain case-wise and all.
What can you give us?
Whale dolphin.
What are they?
Well, it's
killer whale.
Okay, the dolphin, the blue-nosed dolphin is their clicks and whistles. Why? Carl Sagan was the one that brought me into John Lilly's labs. I was there for 10 days. My primary assignment was to try to determine whether the clicks and whistles of a dolphin were a form of language. And I had studied with Abram Moles. I had, aesthetic perception, information theory. I'd had all of these things and discovered that the clicks and whistles were a form of Clifford algebra, dimensional math. The dolphin had a redundancy coefficient that was 10 times more efficient than Hebrew. I speak Old Hebrew, and I know language. And I have to tell you, I stepped back and said, the dolphin don't have a thumb and they don't have fire. What would technology be? And that led to some of my colleagues, Laughlin, D'Aquila, McManus, some others, that wrote on cybernetic anthropology, the idea of different forms of technology and how they would manifest. Now, the dolphin, or for example, and you can see this, they do a thing called sonoluminescence. where they take little air bubbles that are they're constructed with sonar, and they're tiny, and they form in ropes like your string theory, and they play with these things, and then when they let them go, just before they hit the surface, they pop in white light, which is a form of cold fusion, and that's their art form. Enter orca, that has a cerebral cortex that's twice the size of man, and that mammal is firing 60% of it, where man is only doing it in any given moment 10%. And what you have now is a god. Not our god necessarily, but a mammal that is going places man can never comprehend. And then it reminded me of food chain, because I've watched orca hunt dolphin. And if the two of them are superior to man, and orca's after the dolphin, what does that suggest? Bob Dylan. Everybody's got to serve somebody. And then I started looking at the pilot whale and the manatee. All four cetaceans have larger brain case, crunching power. They're designed differently. That means they're able to do different kinds of functioning in terms of reasoning and this and that and emotions. And, you know, we haven't even started talking about the second level.
Yeah, but do you think, because we're in a box on this earth, that they're in a box within a box because they're in the water? I think ants have more chance of evolving.
I'd love to ask a question about dolphins. And I've heard that when people go into the water with dolphins, they can get healed, or they can get certain possible abilities activated in them. Is that something you've come across, Richard?
Well, I've been to Dolphins Plus in Key Largo. I have not been to the one on Hawaii, which is a rehab center. I've spent hours inside a tank with Cosmo and several other dolphins.
Yeah.
I can tell you that the handler that was using the dolphin, when they came up on either side of me to pull me through the water, the one on the left, Cosmo, knew that my arm was artificial. I have an artificial arm. It's bionic. A little artifact from my military days. Can't pick my nose, but nobody notices. And the dolphin came up on me differently, and that handler didn't teach that dolphin to do that. That dolphin knew it from sonar and was able to grok exactly how to pull me through the water, and I was being pulled through the water by two dolphins. Now, I've been there and done that, done studies with them, been inside tanks with them. I have to tell you that when I was in the tank, I felt as if I were in the presence of something beyond me. I felt that. A wonder, not an uncertainty. I had no fear. Yes, they're very large, and they're very quick. And they're better designed physically
and
than we are.
And John Lindley, I mean, he spent 20 or 30 years studying them, right? How do you feel he had a perception of them? Did you talk to him much?
Well, I did. I mean, they're like more aware than we are. That's why I'm saying that in our scheme of things, we are not what we think we are. And good luck with that in terms of survival.
May I say something? Dr. Miller, if somebody spends 30 years studying something, it's not quite the same as if you spent even 5 minutes with them. It's like if there are people, I walk into their houses and they cannot understand why the dogs and cats absolutely love me, and the cats and their children, they will eventually, after they've got over the weirdness of me, they will love me, and they can't understand why.
Intentionality.
They don't have the same kind of conversation.
You're broadcasting other information on your body besides sound and light and movement. You have pheromone releases and other kinds of odoriferous molecules that are sending out all kinds of signals that animals pick up that man hasn't even tuned into yet.
Mm-hmm. But the dolphin,
there's other things. There's body language.
The dolphin treated a mind as great as yours because people will see that you have an incredible mind. They're treating a mind as yours, and they treat you like a child, a little, you sweetie.
Well, no. We're all, hey, check it out. We're all in 4th grade, and while I might be able to run across the playground faster than you, I remember when Darren Sykes later broke the world record. In other words, I beat him across the playground in 4th grade, but not after that. And we're all in 4th grade right now. And I am lucky I was gifted. What I mean by gifted is I was talking to my higher self when I came out of the crib. I was self-realized right out of the gate. That Hillman, we'll talk about that in the book, in terms of the soul's code, in search of character and calling. Now, the whole purpose of being here is to discover your purpose. And once you get it, it's kind of like what Crowley called magical memory, where there's a linking of all your past lives leading to this very moment and what you're supposed to be doing at this very moment in terms of picking up from where you left off in a last lifetime. Now, that's in metaphor.
You talk about how saints, right? They are in the flow and they're not doing damage to anyone around them. Would being on your soul's code be similar to that, do you think?
Well, there's rule like yardsticks, and as a physicist, I've got to have a measuring stick of some kind.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be length, girth, and width, but okay. For example, my definition of a saint would be that he's not in conflict with anything.
Yeah,
that would eliminate
the
Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh right out of the gate, for example, who's in conflict with everything in analog. So the first movement of trying to determine whether or not something is a saint is, are they in conflict with anything? Now, here's the bad news. If they're not in conflict with anything, how do you recognize them?
True. Yeah, I guess conflict was a word.
Yeah. Okay. One of the other definitions I have for a saint is he chooses the moment of his death. He doesn't just die, he chooses that moment.
Yeah.
And a saint, a fifth plane mystic, would be talking to God like you and I are talking to each other right now.
Mm.
Now, those are definitions or assumed truths that I would use to begin building an argument of what ascension would imply and ontologies of mystical states in terms of what you can do and how you might use that as a tool.
Yeah. So say, okay, going back to the Hillman book on the soul's code, right? So say once you start finding your purpose, what might you recognize in your life then?
Well, then your character, the other part of it, the nooks and crannies of how you choose to do it. What we would call spirituality is not what you do, but how you do it.
Very true.
And it's all based on intentionality and your internal landscape. Let's take an example. Like if you wanted to be honest, and I'm going to be honest. Okay, now there's several reasons for being honest. Because you're afraid of getting caught, or looking forward because that's where you want to go.
Yeah.
Now, if you're doing it that way, imagine how the water in your body is structured differently in terms of the probability of how what could happen to you.
Very subtle, but very powerful, right? Yeah.
Well, okay, that's path 2. And guess what? There's 8 levels of that consciousness. And, most people don't even have a clue on the first one.
Mm.
They have no idea what's going on inside. They don't know how they feel about something. And if they do, they conflict it by trying to use logic in some kind of scenario possibility. And Merlin put that correctly when he said anything not specifically forbidden is mandatory. In other words, if it's possible, you can count on it.
Yep.
Now, these are rules of the road and for path working, or what I call magic. And when you start to look at realities from these base points, it's not indigenous, but it's moving closer toward a 4-year-old mentat rather than a 7-year-old. That is where I'm trying to go with myself. That creative place of unrestriction. Because basically what I have discovered is connecting dots is arbitrary. That's why the brain is a 4-dimensional hologram of 5 space and is, by definition, allowing me then to change the movie.
Connecting dots comes from the gut as well, correct?
What does arbitrary mean?
Well, the dot connecting part is
actually,
citric acid amide in the brain. It's that specific neurotransmitter, that one where you go, aha, where you see how one thing fits to the other thing. That is the mind's eye, and that is lysergic acid amide.
I've read that the gut and the heart has similar cells as the brain. So when you get the gut feeling, it makes sense.
That's right. There's resonances and dialogue going back and forth in systems of information. That's in my holographic model. And so there is in the heart has analogs, like the non-local mind.
Is this the
Do you think
thalamus?
there's an actual
The thalamus?
secure?
I know, I got you all going now.
I was going to ask you the actual record. Do you think there's a records? What's it called? A Shakira Records? Or
Akashic. Akashic.
Philosophical Society.
Yeah.
yeah.
I actually think there might be something to it.
When I need it. Yeah.
But it's perceived knowledge, isn't it?
Yeah, well, knowledge is illusion. Okay, that's Castaneda.
Yeah. No,
Oh no, you know that. Everything known is illusion. However, in the tree of life, there's dots. D-A-A-T-H, the missing sephira in the middle of the abyss. And that is knowledge through wisdom. Now, it's a temporary place.
So who's our root then? What's our root? The divine or alien?
What do you mean? Oh, you're talking about food? Like my monastery opposite?
Our existence into this existence.
Oh,
did we just grow from the dirt?
This is only force space. This isn't real. This is just a very low level of action going on.
So who's got the hands of the DualShock then?
I've got
who's
what?
controlling the PlayStation 3 if we're just a holograph?
Yeah, that's a interesting question. And that would be something that Hobbes and Kant might like to discuss, in
Excuse me?
Natural and simple. Hobbes and Kant. I'm going into philosophy. Well, what you're asking is a philosophical question, in fact. And that's where I have always come, as above, so below. Well, then there you go with Bob Dylan. Everybody's got to serve somebody. Even in the Bible, the old Bible.
Hang on, before you go on, as you said, as above, so below, Comet Lovejoy is at closest to the sun right now, and Dennis Rodman is in North Korea. Rodman, Lovejoy, it was Comet R1, he was the number one rebounder in the NBA. But anyway, sorry, go on.
Could I ask another question?
Man. Yeah, it's called mentalism. That's what it is. Sleight of hand. You can't kid a kidder. I'm like right there. And I've been there since I came out I got born like this. I had a sense of knowing how I felt about things. Like, that's why Navy liked me, because when we had a fork in the road, Tesla over Edison or whatever, why we want to go one way over the other arbitrarily.
You just mentioned the Navy. Stop. Confirm for me that the Navy rules the space program and not NASA. Can you confirm that?
Well, who works out of JPL? China Lake.
Yeah,
guided by the down stars. Into the deeps of it, with argon. No, look, Navy has always been the technology for Rockefeller. That was always DuPont.
Yes.
And so we were like Jesuits for the Church of DuPont. We held the keys of the keymaster and the gatekeeper or whatever. You got two things going on here. The technology branch was always Navy. It wasn't Army or any of that. These men who stare at goats, that's crazy. Trying to see some general running through a wall. Give me a break, man. That's over the edge. It's not real. And the book I'm going to write is going to be Horny Women That Stare at Randy Old Goats. Now, that's the way I remember. Well, no, man. Technology.
I had the one, Men Who Stare at Ghosts.
Yeah. Well, that goat didn't even die. It was the one next to it. Give me a break, man.
I said ghosts.
Army, and CIA always took the technologies and went over the edge with them. That's like the Bulgarians taking the Yugoslavian technology and going with it. That's how it is, metaphorically. And it's always been Navy. But I'm not Navy. I'm Navy intelligence, which is slightly, okay, that's different. And so that club, I seem to be still a member. I'm 70 years old and I still hold a secret clearance and blah, blah, blah. It's, there are things I can't talk about.
In order to sail the ocean, I presume that sailing the oceans would represent sailing the galaxies almost, because you're guided by the stars.
Maybe maritime admiralty law which rules the banks.
That's mine. You know, it was the good ship Lollipop.
Yeah, that's the bad side, Andre.
Well, no, man.
So,
Crossing the feminine side of it with a Benny Jesuit. It's really about the scholastic levels of the seas and the air and the ground. You know, when you break them into the four elements, Navy was water, and in metaphor, that's space, and it is always the way it's projected in science fiction. For example, it's all in metaphor, of course, but you'll always see it's a star.
Yeah, they train in water to walk in space.
Submarine-based, you know, whatever your close encounters. Yeah, but look.
Well, earth, air, fire, water.
What's that?
Earth, air, fire, water.
Yeah, and the interconnecting was the ether.
No, what I meant was the
Ether. What
astronauts
is this?
just train in a swimming pool in water as interact as they're walking in space. So yeah, it is water in space basically.
That's the metaphor in terms of the way we group information in what we call memes or structured forms of memory.
So how would the Mars rover fit into that then?
Well, it's obviously probably ground assault, you know, run by the Marines, the first to die.
Hey, the Navy SEALs go in.
But that's how I would like to be the Navy in my laboratory. I always felt that I had a relationship with instrumentation. I was an instrumentation specialist. That means I could touch machinery and it somehow would work. You know, I had a sense of how to make things work. My, check it out. My master's, the one I did at Delaware, I was measuring the K times in the nanosecond, 10 to the minus 9 seconds. Now,
I got a question for you, because I've heard that metallics and things that, because Earth has gravity, so things sag at the molecular level. But when you do it in space, they set 100%. So you can have different things in, set in outer space and on Earth. You get the, the graphene, where it's 100% molecule structure, stronger than anything. Apparently you can only mend it in space or something. Can you confirm or deny that, or what do you know?
Well, you're talking about a certain direction in physics. Mine came from Penrose, where I deal with torus twistor space. So I'm looking at universes in space differently. And really, they're models. None of them are right. They're basically to solve problems. And so you structure a universe, the way you think it works, toward a solution of other possibilities that you hadn't considered previous. That's what Hilbert space and things like that were all about. And to go from a quantum universe into a holographic one allows solutions that a quantum universe wouldn't. For example, in a quantum universe, the more you know about one thing, the less you know about something else, right out of the base, because it presumes a quantization thing. Whereas, if you shift over into a holographic universe, now you're dealing with information and the resolution of it. And by the way, it fracks in or out of itself like a fractal. And in other words, and this is a very important point, it's not about string theory. A holographic system is not, and all these papers that are out right now trying to include it, I'm going to say right out of the gate, a holographic system is not about string theory. That's a
But who's programming that holographic system?
Yeah,
I'd like to.
With Charles. I had hyperdimensional math back in the early 60s. I'm dealing with a level of math now that most pop science have no clue. There's some guy from England, it was wonderful. He came out to show how an article morphs. You know how that little game is where you whisper something in someone's ear and then they pass it on, and by the time it comes back around to you, it's totally different and distorted? Well, same thing is true with your pop sciences all on the internet right now. And what you need is a type of infobot like Cliff High uses Ben Goertzel's forms, which is an nonce algebra. The one I would use would be more like a Clifford form, probably a Clifford 4 universe, where you could pick up chatter, accurately predict the futures, and oh my God, it says that Fukushima is an extinction event running through all the little bullshit that's going on.
What about the observer effect then?
That's a quantum universe.
Go, Andre. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
Yeah, that's a quantum.
You talk about mathematics. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
You talk about mathematics.
Bose-Einstein condensate, for example, the way you would compensate on a Bose-Einstein, you have these two particles that are somehow simply connected to each other. Well, that could be the same particle with two different views on it or resolutions of the information. And that would make it a quantum going into a holographic system. And so the Bose-Einstein condensate in a holographic system would suggest that space and time are simply connected and that are just a probable subset of the lesser forms of dimensions.
I've heard you, Richard, mention Dr. Bruce Cathy in the past, and I've seen he's got this. He passed away not long ago, which is unfortunate because he's incredible. There was a really good doco on him called the Holograph or the Harmonic Code, I think. And
it's harmonic 33, harmonic 697, and he has a harmonic.
Yeah, I forget the name. I'll find the name and I'll bring it up. But in that doco, which was done in 2007, he talks about, because he had his unique way like you, right? He worked out maths and it proved right, and he found out all the universities are teaching crap in the form of mathematics, and there's this group.
Oh, I don't know about that part.
Yeah,
but
he worked out that nuclear detonations require an aspect of the sun. Is that something that, well, maybe I should...
Well, the sun is, from a physical, practical point of view, God. It's our God. And if you go into the old Bibles, they will talk about Kether, it's God, our God. They make a distinction between Yahweh and Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh, but then they suggest there are the skills of Isis, Ein Sof and Ein Sof Ur, which are hierarchies of gods, just like Bob Dylan sings it. You got some dead air there.
That's pretty awesome talk. I'm enjoying it.
Hey, sorry, I was just looking for that.
Yeah,
I was looking.
I think that.
I'm attacking the fridge. Sorry.
What's that, sir? What?
I'm attacking the fridge. Yeah.
I'm going to have to go, guys. I just thought I'd pop in for a minute and play with you.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm glad you did.
Box it up. Send it out. My thinking in things is different, and I think there isn't very many people like us. And that we need to be not so much challenged, but like...
the ability to change our beliefs at will, right? Like you said. Yeah.
Well, that's magic. That's the art of changing consciousness at will. That is the definition of magic, and why it was reserved for ultra-elite of Europe for centuries. It's basically physics with a mystery school. You don't have to really know how it works to be able to use it. That is part of being indigenous. And one of the reasons man is God-favored is that in his genes, he has the ability to cooperate. It's, in other words, it is not conflicting DNA. It's like we've probably got everything.
Do you think we're at heart, our DNA, we're explorers? We don't know nothing. We're exploring everything.
Well, it's part of the microscope. Taking a look-see. Hard to know what part of consciousness is mine and what part belongs to the collective.
Well, do you have to believe in a soul to have a soul? I mean, really, it's part of the imagination.
Well, in all systems, there's always been the Ba and the Ka. There's always been the immortal and immortal part, the stag and the unicorn in the forest, soul and spirit.
But was that just to stop maniacs and rapists and murderers?
Well, no, you mean being a sociopath and all of that. Good luck with that. They're already doing that. So it's a different kind of rape. But nevertheless, it was, I'm going to have a big smoke after it.
I like what...
I think that man is, like Rudolf Steiner put it, is devolving right now. And that it's time to take personal responsibility.
Yeah.
For your own
But
evolution.
devolving compared to what, though? I mean, you go to the Dark Ages and they were literally eating people because they had to survive. But so devolve, yeah, maybe. How so?
Richard,
I think it's all part of the divine plan. Personally,
the power grid goes down for about 6 months, there'll be cannibals out.
Well, yeah, then you'll know who's who. You know how I know how I'm getting old? I know that I'm getting old when I'm no longer a threat to anybody.
Richard, you
getting old.
You talk.
I used to be such a, I don't know. I was immortal.
Richard,
I know my bro.
Richard, when you went to the last Nexus conference, right? You talk about the Dannion Brinkley and his experience, right? And what happened to me personally is I had a girlfriend at the time looking to commit suicide, right? And it really blew my mind. And I found his book, Saved by the Light, and I read it. And he talks about how he was a sniper up until about 24 in Vietnam, right? And he had this death experience, like through electrocution via his phone. And he had this experience where he left his body and went to a place, and then he had this judgment where he saw and he felt the effect of everything he'd done to everyone in a moment. Like, say he killed a general, right? And he felt the bullet go through him from the perspective of the general, but he also felt the perspective of the consequences of that father being lost from his wife and his children.
At the conference, what he said about that was that everybody that you meet, you will have to live their life because they are part of you. Now, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And the implication of it in terms of Astral City and what that means about Fukushima, extinction event of 2050. I ascribe to, I wrote about it called The Modern Alchemist, where I talk about the different layers of relationship you have to yourself, you know, where the Father and the Son are on the mount with the angel at the end. And the Father consumes the Son. And there is this relationship where the angel and the Father are then united. The angel, the Son, and the Father. And on the mount. That was all Christian alchemy back in 14th century with the Book of Lamb Springs. But it's interesting to note that James Hillman and others like Kubler-Ross and Richard Satinover will talk about this form of relationship to self as part of a journey that we're all doing. And I have chosen to approach this from a more Kabbalistic form. I'm a Hermetic Kabbalist. That's what my academics are about in magic. I approach magic from, like Hazadi, going back to the garden, trying to get back to God, like a roadmap, and qualities and behaviors and styles and beliefs and things like that. And I had spoken for a moment about Doc and missing Sephiroth, that, you know, they have the 9 primaries, and then they have this one in the center of the Sea of Karanzan, which was a temporary place. And I had suggested that was also called knowledge for wisdom. And it's above Christ consciousness, and high priestess going, path 13, going to God, Catholic, in the middle pillar. But the outer 2 paths, the male and female sides, have 2 paths at the very top that go to God. They are the hermit and the lovers. And you can go as an androgynous entity or have that androgyny acted out into a physical plane analog. And but that is an integration, either with a physical or an emotional, intellectual form inside, internalized. The path that crossed them, joined the lovers with the hermit, that goes right through the middle of Doth in the middle of the Sea of Karanzan is humor. Why I laugh all the time. I can't take any of this seriously, man. You get all stoked out.
Have you?
I have this.
Have you had? Have you had absence with people recently at all? I remember hearing.
Have I had absence with people?
I don't think many people would know, right? Because I listened to an interview with Mike. I forget his name, but he had you on quite a lot in 2007, and you had it with him with a group in the studio. And everyone was really...
Oh, that was with Dennis Kucinich and Mike Hagan.
Yeah, Mike. Brilliant. I've got that. Yeah, it's fantastic.
That is... I will do anything for a copy of that. Thank you. You can upload that to me. My email is...
I've got you on Skype, so I'll just message it to you if you want.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Yeah. Now, with that said, Mike Hagan got me right out of the gate.
Yeah.
The reason Mike was a...
He is fantastic.
He's
fantastic at interviewing you.
Yeah. Well, he was okay. Yeah, and he had Dennis Kucinich there. That's when Kucinich started getting into his cups. That's a good tarot thing to say. He got into his cups, and we were all getting shit-faced. And I remember, we were getting all right out there.
Can you tell people what absence is?
Buddha.
Can you tell people what absence is?
Yeah, we make a Texarkana style. I make it with ouzo. And I like to do right out of, triple X, where we're going to caramelize that sugar right down in. Actually, how you create the green fairy best is the temperature gradient between the hot sugar that drops into the absinthe, and then when you luge it with cold ice water. And the colder the ice water, faster, better, and more efficiently that green fairy narcotic is created. And you can actually see it forming with the luging. And so, but that's my logo, rather than having an orgy after a big workshop.
Absinthe of mind, isn't it?
What's that?
Absinthe of mind? Sorry.
No, more like ears are optional. You can cut your ear off later.
What does absinthe do to the individual's conscious, Richard?
Absinthe is an interesting. It's alcohol, of course, and it's just like any other liqueur. You get snockered that way. But the formation, and this has been on a bunch of. I don't know if you follow the internet, but there's a bunch of little strings out there on MindNet and what's the well, some others where they have old bulletin boards where they have big long strings on debating on the absinthe thing. I wrote about that and has suggested the narcotic form that is rare that will come out of your wormwood, and when it's mixed with an alcohol with variations in the temperature. That alone will cause a very strange narcotic to fall out that high. It's actually psychoactive. It's like BR-Cerone. It's not, but it's like BR-Cerone.
Makes sense to me. That alcohol makes me angry. I can't take that one. But it makes sense because
probably, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know. I have so many mixes. I have no idea.
Do you
call myself African?
Do you know?
I'm African, born in Britain.
Do you guys know about?
There is something I'd say though. There's something I would say that is really interesting. It's like that is exactly the difference between that absinthe that you're talking about, which is a natural one, and the one that will be bought in a bottle, is completely different. Would that not be like the same as like the Illuminati? It's not the Illuminati. It is a dark person group that has taken over what the Illuminati was.
You know what this is all about? I'm gonna give you an insight. It's a bunch of Jesuits in Rome battling China. And really what it's all about is $2 an hour to $12 an hour. And there's your secret war. How's that? Well, that's pretty straightforward, you know what I mean?
I hear that now.
Well, that's your illuminated one. See, I'm Order of the Silver Star. I'm RJM.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was initiated by Phyllis Seckler herself. I helped start the College of Thelema. You'll find the first book have my holographic concept in it, and I'm writing weird magic things like planetary hours and shit like that. I did it for
Intuitistically, I feel you're brilliant, so don't worry about that. You are fantastic.
Well, no, you don't find answers in physics. Where do you go next? You go into magic. I mean, you know,
it's logic. It's logic, but it's great, right? It's brilliant.
But I didn't find answers there either, by the way. I found a lot more discrepancies is what I did.
Maybe a lot more questions as well, right?
Well, for the answer you raise, you create 10 more questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, back to what you were saying. Away from that one. Away from that one, please.
What's that?
I would like to go back. I'd like to remind you back to where you were standing before. Stand with me, breathe with me, from the feet up, bring the chakras up, out, over to the universe. Come back. You are here and you are sitting with Pamela Anderson. And now, please continue with what you were saying.
I'd like to be sitting with Pamela Anderson. Let me tell you. I'll tell you. I am going blind and being single like I am. And it's interesting.
KOPN Columbia, 89.5
there
FM. My
is
name is
an
Mike
energy
Hagan. Listen to radio.
that's really important
We will play
in terms of externalizing your androgyny. And so there's a way to do that with sex magic. And that, I found, is absolutely more powerful than voodoo. That's one of the reasons Mad Abe got involved with OTO back in 1970. You know? But control is an illusion, and what we're all trying to do is get back in touch with our original self. And the one that's actually directing this play, where you had to give up your memories or whatever metaphor you're going to look at to try to remember the lessons and then pick up from where you left off last and hopefully keep moving the thing forward. One of the things your friend from Nexus magazine that I can't remember his name again, what was his name?
Danny and Brinkley?
Yes.
Yeah.
He said that, you know, every single human, this was another thing he said. He said that every single person has something important to do, that there was not one person that was more important than another. And that all of us had to do our purpose before any of us got out of here. And so that might align with the fact that I raised my daughter as if, that's a good metaphor, as if she were not real, but a reflection of the younger feminine part of myself. And the dialogue that I had with my daughter by raising her like that was unbelievable. And the relationship I now have with her, she's 44, and I have a kind of relationship that is exciting. Now, what it does also prove is that there is the possibility that none of you are real and that I'm hallucinating that badly, and I'm basically on the internet with you, the wise old man, or some weird thing. But you understand what I'm trying to say.
You're spiritually sick. You're spiritually sick.
I've said that a lot in our chat room. You all don't exist. You're only here because I think you are.
Well,
yeah.
I did.
Let's not check out.
And why is a dream more important than real life? They're exactly the same as far as
That's why you want to try to take, you know, that part of your brain where dream time occurs in the brain and move it closer to consciousness. You can do that with brain drivers and toys. And now, because that's why the Hopi said dream time was more real, and that's where you make changes in your physical universe. How do you bring dream time into consciousness? Well, some people have tried to do it through what they call lucid dreaming and or number 8 flat iron skillet. You know, there's all different ways of doing that, altering the consciousness to bring it in through with some of the altered states, because in altered states, you can do things you can't do in conscious state.
I've done stuff like that in saunas, like sweat lodges and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, you can have a near-death experience in a sweat lodge. It's done. Well, you know, that's there's groups of yuppies out there with their sweat lodges where they accidentally killed people, trying to rebirth them. or whatever worm they're going to call it that day. Look, there's ways of doing this that have been through history. I personally use the greater and lesser keys of Solomon, Solomon the King. All the different grimoires through history, the Armadale, Honorius, all the others, these are all century area translations of probably the only book ever written on magic. And interestingly, Mathers is the one I use now from Golden Dawn, but in that second paragraph on the greater keys, the clavicle, it says, ownership is enhanced when shared with another. And that includes consciousness.
Very profound.
No, it's magic. And that it's not profound. You get it at some level. There are many levels being spoken here. And that's the part that you sense with me. And it's all the different layers of this hologram or resolution. You got your physical, emotional, intellectual, archetypal. That's just the first four. There's 4 more layers that Larry talked about in his neurologic circuits.
Info psychology. Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to integrate some of my teachers that I had into a worldview that I can solve problems in.
Absolutely.
And right now, one of the problems I want to solve is how to change this movie.
But you're actually making it a shortcut for the rest of us as well. You know that by writing this book.
Well, that's
books.
my part of it. Your part is to read it and integrate it, and good luck getting off that couch and doing what you're supposed to do. Well, there it is. Read it and weep. That's exactly how it works.
With all these books you're talking about, I'm not going to get off my couch for a while, unfortunately. But but you know what I mean. but yeah, you wanted to go about half an hour ago, Richard. I mean, we could ask you forever, and we could talk to ever, but I mean, yeah.
Nice talking to all of you guys. I'm going to bid you farewell.
Thank you very much.
I do need to bring this to an end. I've got station
and my Skypes are automatically set up to record as well, so I've got a recording of this.
Oh, I'm not. I don't record the.
I've got one because my Skype automatically records. Just so if you wanted an archive of this to put it up.
Send it to me.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
Yeah, but
I don't know if I'll put it up or not, but I'd like to.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
He's got some, the doctor has got some awesome information. I enjoy talking to him.
Yeah, thanks for providing that, Thomas. And great to speak to you, mate.
I hate to bring it to an end, but I do have station business taken care of.
Yeah, well, it's 7 tonight. It's 7 a.m. here, and I haven't slept.
Oh man, you need some rest.
No, I'm not going to sleep much after that. But great talking to you as well, JB.
All right, guys. I sure appreciate it, and y'all have a good afternoon, good evening, or good morning.
Take care.
Hey, welcome all the way through. Thanks for being here if you're still here. The start intro was pretty long. I just wanted to have a bit of a contextual offering of this relative to now, because it's quite profound for me to find it and share it with you at this time. Okay? So, yeah, I'm very fortunate to have had this interaction that I didn't even know I had, alright? I find it ironic I forgot, okay? So, those of you that are hardcore Richard Allen Miller, I hope you get a lot from it. I suggested my version 4.2 of my Sovereignty Declaration at my Access to Me page. I highly recommend going through it, right? He was a profound ingredient for me to coming to all this conclusion and doing all the GSF missions, and as I said at the start, the variables that I offered of working so much out of what's been going on, right? And I highly recommend going to his Oak-Publishing, or do a search for Richard Allen Miller books and get them while you can. who knows how long he'll be alive. I got this inkling that he won't be here too much longer. That's why he was coming into my awareness. So many things, all right? And the books I offered at the start, they're pretty awesome and stuff. So I've got a few other books that I might just share quickly. I thought I'd do it at the end. I could have gone on and on about books, and maybe I'll do a release of just all the epic books that I've got as reference, because while we don't really read books, I just have so many books around. I just love having the knowledge in my field, sort of thing. All right. So I'm going to show you a couple other quick. There's a lady by the name of Joan Ocean that she might be a bit older now. I don't know what she's doing, but 10, 15 years ago she was quite well known, and she was pretty big into the dolphins, right? So this is one of her books. So if you're into those sea life and stuff like that, she's a pretty awesome being out there to go have a look for, alright? Because Richard mentions about the healing centers in Hawaii and stuff, and that's where she was working with them. So there might be videos out there, Joan Ocean and stuff like that, alright? So I mentioned about this, and we talked about it, what he discovered of the mass production of this thing. Because this cordyceps were only sourced at above 14,000 feet, I think, and only given to the Chinese emperor, and he worked out a way to mass produce them and stuff. So this is a book I found out there. There's not a lot of content out there, but this is one of the books, and I highly recommend those things, because they put 28% more oxygen at the cellular level into your body, alright? So a lot of things that are bad don't work, sort of thing, alright? And I've got to be a bit vague about certain things that I talk about. I'm pretty sure I got this with a heads up from Richard, because he's big into parasites and stuff like that. So I think Jack Schwartz is, I have an idea about him. I don't really want to talk too much about it. This video is quite long, but interesting book, right? And we talk about water a bit. I don't have the Jerry Pollock book, but I've got this one. This is a bit of a, you'd probably never know about it unless I said it, alright? And it wasn't easy to get. It used to be very, very expensive. It's out there, so I couldn't remember who recommended it or when. It would be a very, very long time ago, but what I used to do is always take note of all the books and stuff and go hunt them down. And because you never know what's going to be available and stuff like that, whether it's going to be accessible and that. So I really loved that component of the discovery process and exploring things. I don't tend to read a lot anymore, because what I worked out is that most of the people, they're not clear, right? And I was picking up their energy hygiene issues and dogmas and all this sort of stuff. So all that stuff can be layered multidimensionally in the content of people, because no one really does energy hygiene, right? So that's one of the things that I've really invested a lot into facilitating and stuff. So I highly recommend 2025 being an epic year. You embrace your energy hygiene and have a massive edge over everyone, right? But yeah, water is profound and stuff like that, important to our nature and well-being. And we talked about structured water and intentionality and stuff like that. So it's just an opportunity to share this rare variable, right? But as I shared at the start, Richard's books, Oak-Publishing, ESP Induction, I think he's got a new version of this. It's got a different cover. But this is the first book. He's got all sorts of other books as well, which are really profound. And then there's this book again. It's got his power tools, the 8 things that he talks about and stuff like that. Highly recommend, okay? And then he's got many after this that he's released. But yeah, like me with the currency trading, ideally I realized about me, and I'll just put this down. It's getting dark, so I'm going to stop in a sec. But I realized me about the currency trading, and I've been contemplating that a lot. and we talk about Bitcoin in this, and I was very much across Bitcoin and cliff high 2010, 2011 and stuff, when a lot of really messed up stuff was going on that ultimately would result in me having to make choices about doing the right thing for people or the money and stuff, and I made sure people were okay. But in contemplating a lot, I realized I was set up to really get into Bitcoin in a big way. And ideally, if I had really been on my game, made the decisions that potentially I had there to make that I should have made, I would have been in a position to have a lot of funds. And it's not about being rich and stuff. I just felt like, if you've ever seen the Travelers series, I was one of the people that could handle having a lot of money and not being attached to it. Because when people have a lot of money, they become different people. The power sort of, like the energy potential in it shifts a lot of people. They can't handle it. They become different people. And Richard talks about needing 75,000 to write 10 books, and to me, I would love to have funded that so he could do it, because I know it would ease his life and he could get free of the struggles in life and really create and cultivate and stuff. So I feel like just a appreciation of the whole thing about intuitive development and pattern recognition and stuff like that. It's about being able to make the best decisions with all the variables, and we're just been playing catch up and we've never really had a chance, right? So I'm here. We did the GSF 36 where we healed source, and what I said about early January. So we got Earth cranking and getting her in control of our DNA and reanimating it and stuff like that. So I've had a lot of really big victories with a lot of people, and then ultimately releasing version 4.2 of my sovereignty declaration. So they're out and we've done it, and we are where we are as a result of everything. So I really hope you got a lot from this. Apologies, it's dark. I was just waiting for some watering to stop and stuff like that, and going through the audio before I maybe do a lot of images and stuff like that gives me a chance to play with that. So I hope you got a lot from this, and if you've never come across Richard Alan Miller, I hope it really inspires you to go hunt him down and go on a Keyboard Ninja binge and go get all his books and stuff, and make the most of him as a variable while he was still here. And this release is a very profound one for myself, and it's a great honor to have had that time with him. I would love to spend a lot of time, and as you probably hear, I had a lot of questions and didn't really get a lot of chance to answer them, to ask them, but I still got a few in, right? So I thank you for being a hunter of truth to actually find this and allow me to be a part of a journey. I hope you got a lot from this, and coming from a very warm Adelaide, Australia, I hope you get a lot of heat wherever you are. It's a bit cold in a lot of areas of the world, and I really highly recommend, if you're new, go through some of my content and go through my Access to Me page and my Sovereignty Declaration and get a lot from it, right? But I really thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey and to be open to these sort of concepts. I hope you get a lot from this and it sparks a lot more in you. And until next time, Andre from the land down under with Vegemite sandwiches, wishing you the best, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Everything's gonna be alright tonight. Oh yeah, my love for you is gonna keep on rising. The sun's gonna keep on slamming in December, heading for the city lights. 975, we're sharing each other, nearer than farther. Scent of lemon drips from your eyes. We are the people that rule the world, fostering in every boy and girl, all rejoicing in the world. Take me now, we can try a little adventure, love in the summer. Follow the sun tonight, reminiscing of the times of life. For each every other, the feeling is stronger. Shock at 11, got lost in your eyes. Can't do why when I think you're gonna leave me, but I'm gonna try. Are you gonna leave me now? Can't you be believing now? Can't do why when I think you're gonna leave me, but I'm gonna try. Are you gonna leave me now? Can't you be believing now? Can you remember in human eyes? It was to where we'd energize, lie in the sand and visualize like it's 75 again. We are the people that rule the world, fostering in every boy and girl, all rejoicing in the world. Take me now, we can try. Can't do why when I think you're gonna leave me, but I'm gonna try. Are you gonna leave me now? Can't you be believing now? Can't do why when I think you're gonna leave me, but I'm gonna try. Are you gonna leave me now? Can't you be believing now? I know everything about you, know everything about me, know everything about us. I know everything about you, know everything about me, know everything about us. Can't do why when I think you're gonna leave me, but I'm gonna try. Are you gonna leave me now? Can't you be believing now? Can't do why when I think you're gonna leave me, but I'm gonna try. Are you gonna leave me now? Can't you be believing now?
John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.